The forest of Oregon hides secrets that time cannot erase. By day, sunlight trickles through towering evergreens, moss carpets the forest floor, and birds flit between branches. By night, these same woods become something else entirely. Shadows stretch unnaturally long. Whispers drift on the wind. Something unseen watches every step. Imagine walking a trail where the air itself feels alive. The rustle of leaves, the snap of a branch, the shifting folga all hint at a presence that is neither animal nor human. Each footstep echoes farther than it should. Shapes flicker at the edge of vision. Eyes unseen follow silently, and the forest remembers every visitor who dares to enter. Tonight, we journey to the 25 most haunted shadow forests in Oregon, where trees whisper at night. Shadows move with intention, and the thin veil between the living and the unseen grows impossibly thin. Oregon's forests have a reputation for more than their natural beauty. Among the towering pines, moss-covered oaks, and misty valleys, something lingers. Hikers report figures glimpsed at the edge of sight, voices riding the wind, and the sensation of being observed. Some forests are bound to ancient burial grounds or sacred lands. Others are haunted by the souls of travelers who vanished long ago, leaving behind echoes of their presence. The shadow forests are alive. Fog rolls like a living curtain, twisting around trunks and concealing paths. Shadows move independently, and the wind carries more than sound. Even experienced hikers feel disoriented, drawn deeper into trails that twist, bend, and vanish under the dense canopy. Have you ever walked beneath trees and felt them watching you? That the whispers in the wind were more than just a breeze? Tonight, we explore these forests together, and you are invited to share your experiences in the comments. Which forest would you dare to enter alone at night? Deep in the western Cascades, a forest stretches farther than the eye can see. Mist clings to the branches and curls around the trunks like living fingers, weaving through the undergrowth with a quiet persistence. The trees rise tall and close together, their dark silhouettes forming a canopy that filters even the midday sun, leaving the forest floor in perpetual half-light. Every step taken among the pines is accompanied by the soft crunch of needles underfoot, a sound that feels impossibly loud in the stillness. Shrouded Pines is not an ordinary forest. Travelers describe it as having a presence, as if the land itself is aware of each visitor. The fog seems to shift with intention, rising and falling like breath, sometimes thickening to obscure the path, then thinning just enough to reveal a shadow at the edge of vision. Glimpses of figures appear among the trees, always at the periphery, vanishing the moment they are looked at directly. The mind struggles to determine whether the forest is playing tricks or if something else is watching. Sounds in shrouded pines are disorienting and often unnerving. Whispers seem to carry on the wind, soft syllables that mimic a voice calling a name familiar to the listener. Footsteps echo through the undergrowth behind those who wander alone. Yet when they turn, there is nothing but empty space and the steady sway of branches. Even the most confident hiker can feel a growing unease, a sense that every direction leads deeper into the unknown, as if the forest has no intention of letting them leave easily. Light behaves strangely here. Sunbeams pierce the canopy in unexpected shafts, illuminating patches of moss and fallen leaves with an ethereal glow. Shadows stretch unnaturally, moving independently from their source, and mist clings to shapes long after the source has disappeared. Paths wind in subtle loops, creating the sense of walking in circles. Trees that seemed close moments ago are now impossibly distant. Travelers report a creeping sensation of being watched, of an unseen presence guiding, herding, or perhaps observing them silently. Shrouded Pines has a way of affecting memory. Those who enter alone sometimes emerge hours later with fragmented recollections, unable to describe the full experience. Time appears to move differently within the forest, stretching and compressing in ways that are impossible to explain. Some speak of glimpsing objects or structures that vanish when approached, of hearing soft laughter or murmurs that cannot be traced. The experience leaves an impression, subtle and lingering, that persists long after leaving the forest. The floor itself adds to the forest's otherworldly atmosphere. Moss carpets tree roots in thick, velvety layers. Ferns unfurl like delicate hands reaching toward the mist. Fallen logs are slick with dampness, supporting tiny ecosystems of mushrooms and lichen. Each element seems alive, not just in a natural sense, but as if attentive to every movement within the shadows. Even the wind carries a weight, shifting leaves in deliberate patterns, rustling with purpose rather than randomness. Wildlife behaves unusually within shrouded pines. Birds are often silent, their songs muted or absent entirely. Deer and smaller creatures appear at the edge of vision and vanish before they are fully observed. The stillness is punctuated only by distant sounds. The snap of a branch, the drip of water from pine needles, a sudden rustle that could be an animal or something else entirely. This careful balance of movement and stillness creates a tension that settles in the chest of anyone venturing into the forest. Despite the eerie qualities, the forest has its allure. Many are drawn to shrouded pines, seeking solitude, challenge, or the thrill of the unknown. There is beauty in the way fog clings to branches, in the filtered light on moss-covered ground, and in the vast expanse of untouched wilderness. But the forest-esque charm carries a warning, subtle yet insistent. Respect and caution are demanded. Those who ignore the feeling of being observed often find themselves disoriented, compelled to turn back before venturing too far. Seasonal changes alter the forest in ways that amplify its mystery. In early spring, fog rises from melting snow, curling through trunks with a ghostly persistence. Summer brings long shadows and a heavy, earthy scent that clings to the skin. Fall fills the forest with muted reds and golds, leaves crunching like whispers underfoot. Winter coats the trees in frost, amplifying the silence to an almost tangible weight. Each season brings a new perspective, yet the sense of unseen presence remains constant, unchanged, and undeniable. There are areas within shrouded pines where the air feels thick, almost viscous, as though the forest itself is breathing. The fog grows heavier, and visibility diminishes to a few feet. Sounds are magnified, and distant footsteps echo too close. Whispers loop back from nowhere, and shadows stretch beyond comprehension. Navigation becomes difficult, and the forest seems to shift with every step, guiding or confusing, teasing or warning. Many legends and local stories surround shrouded pines. Some speak of explorers who became lost for hours, emerging disoriented and unable to recount what they experienced. Others claim to have seen fleeting figures dressed in old clothing, standing silently between the trees before vanishing. There are tales of voices calling travelers deeper into the forest, only to leave them wandering empty clearings. These stories create a sense of anticipation, a feeling that the forest is a place where the boundaries between the natural and the unknown blur. Visitors who tread lightly and with awareness report a different experience. The forest can be serene, captivating, and humbling. Gentle breezes carry the scent of pine and damp earth. Light filters through the mist in soft patterns. Birds finally sing. The sounds of a stream trickle over rocks. In these moments, the forest reveals its beauty without threat, yet the lingering sense of being watched never fully disappears. Shrouded Pines reminds all who enter that nature holds secrets beyond the understanding of humans. As daylight fades, the forest transforms. Shadows lengthen and deepen, fog thickens, and the temperature drops subtly. Every rustle and whisper becomes amplified. Shapes at the edge of vision appear more distinct, moving with intent. Travelers are urged to leave before darkness fully envelopes them, for navigating the forest at night is challenging even for the most experienced. There is a quiet caution embedded in the experience, a reminder that while the forest is breathtaking, it is also unpredictable. Shrouded Pines is ultimately a place of paradox. It is both beautiful and unsettling, serene and disorienting, inviting and forbidding. Those who enter alone or unprepared often return changed, carry with them a lingering sensation that the forest itself has imprinted on their memory. The whispers, the shifting fog, the figures at the edge of sight, all combine to create an experience that is vivid, haunting, and unforgettable. For those who feel drawn to mystery, Shrouded Pines offers an adventure unlike any other. Each step along its winding trails, each pause to listen to the forest breathe, each glance into the mist, provides a sense of wonder intertwined with caution. It is a place where imagination meets reality, and where the forest seems to watch, guide, and remember every visitor. Those who tread carefully can witness its beauty, but they can never escape the awareness that they are never truly alone. Shrouded Pine stands as a testament to the power of nature and the unknown. Its fog-laden trails, towering pines, and elusive figures create an environment that is as captivating as it is unnerving. To step into Shrouded Pines is to step into a story that is still being written by the wind, the trees, and the unseen forces that call this forest home. Whispering Hollow stretches along a rugged coastline, where the scent of salt and pine mingles in the brisk air. The cliffs drop sharply into churning waters below, waves breaking against rocks in a rhythm as old as the land itself. The wind sweeps through the hollow, carrying more than just the tang of the sea. It seems to carry voices, distant laughter, and murmurs that drift on the breeze, as if the landscape itself remembers lives that have long passed. Hikers and visitors often describe an otherworldly presence as they move along the narrow trails. Glowing orbs appear between trees, floating gently before vanishing into mist. Shadows shift against a flow of fog, forming shapes that seem almost human, yet dissolve when approached. The forested paths are lined with gnarled pines, their roots tangled across the soil. Every step taken feels guided by unseen hands, and the hollow holds a subtle energy, one that tugs at the senses, and encourages awareness of the unseen world. Legends tell of fishermen lost at sea, men who never returned to the safety of their homes. Their spirits, it is said, wander inland, drawn to the living by memories of the lives they were forced to leave behind. Their presence is not always threatening, but it is persistent. At times, a faint splash of water seems to echo from nowhere, or a cold draft brushes against the back of the neck, reminding those who pass that the hollow is alive with histories that never fully rest. The sound of the coast merges seamlessly with the rustling leaves, creating a melody that is both haunting and mesmerizing. Waves crash rhythmically, echoing across the cliffs, while the wind carries soft whispers that seem to respond to movement through the forest. Even in the quietest moments, the hollow hums with energy. Visitors report hearing footsteps that do not belong to them, the soft shuffle of feet over moss and fallen needles that fade when investigated. Mist drifts across the landscape, thickening along the lower paths and curling around tree trunks. The fog makes the hollow appear suspended in another time, where the edges of reality blur and imagination steps closer to certainty. Glowing lights are seen moving through the mist, appearing at the periphery of vision before disappearing. Some describe these orbs as curious, following travelers along the trail, sometimes hovering above rocks or dancing near streams. They give the sense that the hollow is alive, aware and responsive to those who enter. Along the cliffside, the wind picks up, carrying a chill that seems to rise from the earth itself. Waves crash harder, sending spray into the air, and the hollow responds with a symphony of sound. In these moments, it is possible to imagine the fishermen, their figures glimpsed just beyond the mist, watching, waiting, or perhaps guiding those who venture close. The energy is not menacing, but it commands attention, reminding visitors that this is a place where the living and the departed share the same space. Even the flora seems attuned to the hollow-esque energy. Pines bend slightly toward the cliffs, as if leaning into unseen currents of memory. Ferns sway despite calm air, and fallen leaves move in patterns that suggest deliberate intent. Small streams trickle through the underbrush, reflecting light in ways that can startle or delight, creating reflections that appear almost like ghostly silhouettes moving alongside the living. Every sound, shadow, and shift of light contributes to the sense that Whispering Hollow exists simultaneously in two worlds. Those who linger in the hollow often speak of a profound feeling of connection, as if walking alongside the past. The footsteps of fishermen, the laughter of unseen children, and the faint murmurs of conversations long ended seem to echo through time. Every glance toward the fog, every shimmer of light, and every ripple on the water reinforces the presence of lives once lived, now quietly observing those who tread their paths. Paths leading deeper into forests grow narrower, enclosed by towering trees whose branches intertwine overhead, forming natural tunnels that guide the wandering. The hollow becomes more intimate, its energy concentrated. Travelers report hearing soft calls that seem meant from alone, or glimpsing fleeting forms moving just out of reach. The environment encourages caution, awareness, and respect, as though the hollow itself monitors those who traverse it, allowing passage only to those who tread lightly. As evening approaches, the hollow transforms further. Shadows lengthen, and the mist thickens, creating layers of depth. The wind carries more distinct sounds of movement, faint scraping of branches, and low murmurs that echo like distant conversations. Light reflects off the fog in ways that suggest shapes where none should be. The combined elements of wind, water, and earth seem orchestrated to create a haunting symphony, one that draws attention to the fine line between what is seen and what is sensed. Whispering Hollow has endured for centuries, a place shaped by natural forces and human stories alike. Its legends, sights, and sounds have made it a destination for those seeking mystery, a sense of connection to the past, or an encounter with the unknown. Visitors leave with a memory of glowing orbs, drifting shadows, and a haunting melody of wind through pine and waves against cliffs. The Hollow-esque presence lingers long after departure, echoing in thought, imagination, and memory. To walk through Whispering Hollow is to step into a living story, where history and legend intertwine, and the natural and supernatural coexist. Every gust of wind, every ripple of mist, and every rustle of leaves carries the weight of those who once lived, and those who never returned. It is a place where the ocean meets the forest, and the living pass through the paths of the departed. Whispering Hollow leaves an indelible mark, a quiet reminder that some places are never truly empty, and that the voices of the past continue to follow, watch, and whisper. Blackwater Forest lies deep in the northern mountains, a vast expanse of trees so dense that even the full moon struggles to pierce the canopy. Light rarely reaches a forest floor, and shadows cling to every branch, every leaf, creating an atmosphere that is both mesmerizing and unsettling. The forest is silent in ways that feel unnatural, as if it holds its breath, waiting for something to disturb its stillness. Walking beneath the towering trees, one cannot shake the feeling that the forest is alive, aware of every movement and every sound. Campers and hikers who venture into Blackwater Forest often report experiences that defy explanation. Shadowy forms are said to linger at the edge of vision, flitting between trees or hovering near tents. Footsteps circle in the underbrush, yet when one turns to confront them, nothing is there. Whispers rise and fade without pattern, carrying tones of sadness, warning, or perhaps something more primal. The forest seems to respond to the presence of humans, shifting and changing in ways that are imperceptible yet undeniable. The air in Blackwater Forest is heavy, carrying the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The silence amplifies the smallest sounds, a twig snapping underfoot, the distant splash of a stream, or the rustle of unseen animals moving through the foliage. These ordinary noises take on an eerie quality in this environment, heightening the senses and feeding the imagination. Even experienced outdoorsmen find themselves on edge, aware of eyes that may be watching from the darkness beyond. The forest has a reputation among locals that adds to its mystique. It is said that entering alone is unwise, that Blackwater senses vulnerability and reacts to it. Those who ignore these warnings report a range of unsettling phenomena. Paths that should be familiar twist unexpectedly, returning travelers to the same spot despite careful navigation. Mist rises without wind, curling around trees and obscuring vision. Shadows seem to grow larger or stretch toward intruders, moving independently of the natural angles of light. Blackwater Forest is also known for sudden temperature shifts. A cool breeze can sweep through a campsite without warning, leaving skin tingling with cold. Areas that were bathed in sunlight moments before can fall into near darkness under the thick canopy. These changes are subtle yet noticeable, creating a sense of disorientation that adds to the tension and unease. The forest is alive with contradictions, beautiful yet menacing, silent yet full of sound, inviting yet dangerous. Some report hearing voices that are not their own. Words form and dissolve, sometimes calling out names, other times convey emotion that is difficult to define. The voices often come from directions that seem impossible, echoing from behind trees, from the canopy above, or from shadows on the forest floor. Many feel a presence nearby, close enough to touch, yet intangible, like a ghost or an unseen observer. These encounters are fleeting but leave a lasting impression, making the forest feel intimate and vast at the same time. Travelers have also described figures appearing among the trees. At first, they seem human, distant campers or hikers, yet their movements are unnatural. Their outlines blurred. They vanish when approached, leaving only the sense that someone or something was there. The shadowy forms are often accompanied by feelings of dread or sorrow, an emotional residue that clings long after the figures disappear. It is as if the forest holds memories of countless wanderers, preserving fragments of their presence within its dense foliage. The forest floor itself seems to have a consciousness. Trails appear and disappear overnight, and markers left by explorers are often displaced or obscured. Moss grows in patterns that seem deliberate, forming shapes or lines that guide or mislead. Streams change their course subtly, altering familiar landmarks. The landscape is fluid and unyielding at the same time, a natural labyrinth that tests the resolve of anyone who dares to navigate it. Even during daylight, Blackwater Forest maintains an air of tension. Sounds are amplified in the stillness. The call of a distant bird, the rustle of a branch, the faint whisper of wind through the leaves. These sensations combine to create an immersive experience that engages every sense and challenges a perception of reality. Those who spend time in Blackwater Forest often leave with a heightened awareness of the unseen. The combination of shadows, whispers, shifting paths, and unexplained movements creates a sense that the forest itself is watching and interacting. It is not merely a place to pass through. It is a living environment, filled with energy that is ancient, enigmatic, and unyielding. The forest holds its secrets tightly, offering glimpses to those who venture in but never surrendering its full story. Blackwater Forest remains a place of fascination and fear. Its canopy, shadows, and whispers create an atmosphere that is unforgettable. Every step through the dense undergrowth brings a visitor closer to an understanding that some places are more than physical space. They are living memories, carriers of energy, and reservoirs of mystery. The forest challenges perception, tests courage, and leaves an impression that lingers long after one has left its boundaries. Would you dare to walk alone beneath the dense canopy of Blackwater Forest? To feel the brush of unseen presence? To hear whispers that rise and fade? And to confront the living darkness that thrives where light struggles to penetrate? As twilight drifts across the horizon, the dense canopy of howling pines begins to stir with a quiet anticipation. The forest floor, carpeted with fallen needles and twisting roots, seems to breathe along with the fading light, exhaling the scent of earth and damp wood. Shadows stretch and merge, elongating as if to mimic shapes of unseen watchers. The air itself carries a weight, a subtle heaviness that settles around anyone daring to enter. When night falls fully, the forest awakens in a way that is both mesmerizing and unsettling. A low, rhythmic wail rises from deep within the trees. It ebbs and flows like a distant lament, carried by the wind along winding trails and hidden hollows. The sound is impossible to pinpoint, yet impossible to ignore. Some describe it as the breath of the forest itself, a collective voice of unseen inhabitants who have existed long before the paths were cut or the cabins built. The trails of howling pines are not forgiving. Paths twist in unnatural curves, sometimes looping back on themselves in ways that defy logic. Hikers have noted a strange distortion of time, where a short walk can stretch into hours and moments seem to linger longer than they should. The forest is aware, or at least it feels aware, guiding the footsteps of those who venture too far with subtle nudges and whispered warnings hidden in the rustling of leaves. At the edges of the trails, dark shapes appear briefly, only to vanish when observed directly. They move with a fluidity that is almost dreamlike, slipping behind trees or melting into shadows. Some claim the figures are spirits. Others believe them to be manifestations of the forced will. The uncertainty adds to the hypnotic pull, drawing visitors deeper. The trees themselves seem alive, not simply in their swaying and creaking, but in the way they interact with the mind. Breaths feel synchronized with the movement of branches overhead, a subtle rhythm that both comforts and unnerves. The whisper of needles brushing together can sound like a warning or a call, a suggestion that the forest is aware of more than just bodies moving through its spaces. There's a sense of intelligence here, quiet yet insistent, guiding, observing, and occasionally nudging with unseen hands. Even in the absence of human presence, Howling Pines carries a palpable energy. Rocks and fallen logs are positioned in ways that seem intentional, almost ceremonial. Some areas have depressions in the soil that suggest long-forgotten rituals or natural phenomena with meanings lost time. The wind channels through the trunks in certain clearings, producing tones that resemble distant voices, adding layers to the forest's nocturnal symphony. Hikers and explorers report sensations that cannot be easily explained. A sudden dizziness, a fleeting disorientation, the feeling of being watched from every angle simultaneously. It is as though the forest has its own heartbeat, pulsing in rhythm with the footsteps and breaths of those who traverse it. Moments of clarity can shift suddenly into a dreamlike haze, where sounds and shadows merge, and the boundaries between observer and observed blur. Some have attempted to capture phenomena with cameras and recorders, but technology seems ill-equipped for the subtleties of Howling Pines. Footage often appears distorted, recordings faint and warped. Shadows that were clear to the human eye dissolve into the static of playback, while sounds vanish into silence. The forest resists documentation, preserving its mysteries in ways that defy conventional explanation. Despite the eerie sensations, there is an undeniable allure. The forest exudes an energy that is both cautionary and captivating. Every turn, every shadow, every subtle shift in the wind invites curiosity. Visitors find themselves walking slower, listening more intently, attuned to the rhythm of the trees and the whisper of the unseen. The forest demands attention, yet rewards only those willing to move with patience and respect, never rushing, never forcing understanding. Howling Pines is not a place for fear alone. It is a sanctuary of enigmatic beauty, where the natural and the supernatural coexist in delicate balance. It teaches lessons in observation, patience, and humility, reminding those who wander through its depths that not all is meant to be understood, and some mysteries are more powerful for remaining unsolved. The forest whispers its secrets selectively, revealing hints of the extraordinary in fleeting glimpses and subtle sounds. As the night deepens and the wails of the forest rise once more, the air thickens with anticipation. Shadows move with purpose. Trails twist and fold upon themselves, and the rhythmic sound resonates like a heartbeat in the chest of anyone who listens. Howling Pines is alive in ways that cannot be fully grasped, a living, breathing entity that exists on the threshold between the known and the unknown. Those who emerge in the early hours of dawn often describe a lingering sensation, a trace of the forest's presence that clings to the skin and the mind. It is not simply memory or imagination. It is an imprint, a subtle reminder that the forest watches, listens, and remembers. Howling Pines is more than a collection of trees and trails. It is a place where the natural world and something deeper intersect, leaving traces of wonder, caution, and unspoken stories behind. Even when the sun rises, the whispers of the forest remain. A faint wail carried on the wind, shadows retreating into the undergrowth, and trails that seem to hold secrets just out of reach. Howling Pines endures as a timeless guardian of mystery, offering a journey into the unknown for those brave enough to enter, and leaving an echo in the hearts of all who dare to listen. Moonlight Hollow stretches across the landscape like a living entity, its trees rising tall and close together, casting long shadows that dance with the rhythm of the night. Fog flows through the trunks in slow, liquid motions, curling along the forest floor and winding around roots as if seeking pull wandering footsteps deeper into the woods. The air carries a damp, earthy scent, mingled with the faint sweetness of moss and fallen leaves, grounding visitors even as the forest seems to tug at something unseen within them. Glowing orbs drift silently between the trees, moving with an intelligence that feels deliberate. They hover and circle, sometimes disappearing into the mist, sometimes appearing closer than they should be. Their pale light flickers across bark and stone, casting the forest in an otherworldly hue that feels both serene and unsettling. Shadows bend unnaturally where the orbs touch, and the fog responds, thickening in patches, rolling in gentle waves, and occasionally separating to reveal a clearing bathed in a spectral glow. Sounds in Moonlight Hollow are subtle, yet impossible to ignore. A twig snaps somewhere off the path. Leaves rustle without wind. Footsteps echo in the distance, yet when turned toward, no one is there. Soft whispers seem to brush the ears, not words, but sensations, as if the forest itself is communicating through vibrations in the air. Even the bravest adventurers pause and shiver, feeling the weight of unseen eyes tracking their movement, a quiet curiosity emanating from every shadowed corner. The forest floor is alive with texture. Moss blankets stones and fallen branches, damp and soft beneath careful steps. Ferns sway despite the still air, their fronds brushing against legs and fingers. Occasionally, visitors feel faint touches along their arms or shoulders, a chill that runs deeper than a sudden gust of wind. It is a sensation of invisible fingers, fleeting and gentle, tugging at clothing, as if coaxing travelers further along hidden trails that defy the eye. Light behaves strangely here. Moonbeams pierce the canopy in sharp, silver blades, illuminating mist and undergrowth with an almost tangible radiance. The fog responds, refracting the light into soft halos and ethereal patterns that seem to shift as one moves. Even in open clearings, the shadows feel dense, carrying a presence that resists the comforting glow of moonlight. Paths twist in unexpected directions, circling back, splitting in ways that challenge perception. Time feels altered, with minutes stretching and folding, leaving a lingering disorientation that seeps into memory long after leaving the forest. Wildlife moves quietly, often unseen, yet its presence is known. Birds are silent, perched high in the trees, their eyes reflecting dim light as they observe. Small animals scurry through underbrush with careful precision, disappearing before they are fully spotted. Occasionally, a distant howl or call breaks the stillness, but it is impossible to know whether it comes from a natural creature or something else. Every sound seems amplified, carefully placed, making the forest feel responsive, alert, and aware. Visitors report that the forest seems to learn and adapt. A person walking alone feels nudged away from familiar paths and toward unknown clearings. Landmarks appear where none were before, and familiar trails seem to dissolve behind them. Shapes shift just beyond peripheral vision. Branches, trunks, and misformed figures that vanish when directly looked at, leaving only the impression of movement, the faint echo of presence, and a growing sense that the forest is not passive but engaged in a subtle game of observation. Moonlight Hollow invites curiosity and demands caution. The beauty of the fog, the gentle glow of floating lights, and the softness of the forest floor draw explorers, and yet a persistent tension remains. Every corner may hide a secret, every shadow a presence. The air vibrates with awareness. And even when one pauses in a sunlit glade, the feeling that the forest is watching never fully dissipates. The trees, the mist, and the orbs combine to create an immersive environment, where the boundary between natural and supernatural blurs in quiet, persistent ways. Seasonal changes amplify the Forster's strange allure. Spring brings a mist that rises from damp earth and melting snow, carrying the scent of new growth and faint decay. Summer nights are heavy with humidity and the subtle hum of nocturnal insects, punctuated by the eerie glow of orbs. Autumn cloaks the forest in muted reds and golds, with fallen leaves adding a soft crunch to every cautious step. Winter turns a hollow into a monochrome realm of frost and silence, where every sound carries farther and the fog moves with an almost sentient patience. Each season shifts the experience, revealing new aspects of the forest while maintaining its core mystery and intensity. The fog in Moonlight Hollow behaves unpredictably. It can thicken suddenly, swallowing paths and clearings, or drift in thin wisps, teasing with glimpses of what lies ahead. Lights and orbs appear more frequently in certain pockets, forming circles or patterns as if watching, guiding, or communicating. Visitors describe feelings of anticipation, as if something is waiting beyond the fog. And yet the forest never forces interaction. It allows the curious to explore, but always on its own terms. The hollow leaves impressions that linger long after leaving. Time spent here is rarely forgotten. Those who enter alone often return with fragmented memories, uncertain of the order in which events unfolded. Sounds, touches, lights, and fleeting figures embed themselves in consciousness, creating a subtle unease that persists. Even when sharing stories with friends or family, the forest's influence remains, leaving a sense that the experience was real yet not fully explainable. Moonlight Hollow is a place of paradox. It is inviting yet foreboding, beautiful yet unsettling. Its fog, glowing orbs, and subtle touches create an environment that challenges perception and encourages awareness. Every step feels purposeful, as though the forest itself observes intentions and reacts. It demands respect and careful attention, rewarding patience and caution, while leaving no space for carelessness. To walk through Moonlight Hollow is to engage with a living landscape, one that is ancient, aware, and responsive. Each breath, each movement, and each pause is mirrored in subtle ways by the environment. The forest is not merely a collection of trees and undergrowth, but a presence, a complex web of sensations and phenomena that persist through fog, moonlight, and shadow. Those who explore it leave changed, carrying the memory of a forest that sees, feels, and remembers every visitor. The forest at night is transformed into a realm of ethereal beauty and quiet tension. Shadows deepen, fog thickens, and the sense of being observed grows more tangible. Visitors find themselves drawn onward, guided by unseen forces, yet aware that the forest's awareness is never malevolent, simply insistent. Moonlight Hollow remains a place of wonder and subtle dread. Its phenomena captivate and unsettle in equal measure. It invites exploration while preserving its secrets. To enter is to participate in a dialogue with the forest itself, a silent exchange of observation and awareness. The experience leaves one mindful of the delicate balance between curiosity and caution, beauty and eeriness, presence and absence. Walking through the hollow, the visitor learns to listen to the whispers of fog, to watch for the glow orbs, and to feel the gentle brushes of unseen hands. Each sensation contributes to a narrative that is uniquely personal, immersive, and unforgettable. The forest reveals only fragments, leaving the imagination to fill the spaces between. Ensuring that Moonlight Hollow is a story carried long after leaving, lingering in memory and imagination alike. The experience of Moonlight Hollow is ultimately one of awe and reflection. It demonstrates how a natural environment, infused with unusual phenomena and subtle responsiveness, can create a lasting impression on those who explore it. The forest is alive in ways that transcend ordinary perception, offering both beauty and tension, serenity and mystery. Visitors depart with a heightened sense of awareness, a lingering curiosity, and profound appreciation for a forest that watches, responds, and endures. Echo Woods lies nestled along the Columbia River Gorge, a forest where the ordinary rules of sound and space seem to bend. The trees rise tall and dense, their trunks stretching toward the sky, while roots tangle across the forest floor. Every step taken here carries weight, not only in the thud against soil and leaf litter, but in the strange way the forest responds. Footsteps echo back distorted, voices return altered, and whispers float through the air with eerie clarity. The paths of Echo Woods are deceptive. Familiar trails seem to shift subtly as hikers move, bends appearing where none existed moments before. Landmarks that seem concrete vanish or change, leaving the forest both a guide and a trickster. It is as if the trees themselves are observers, silently recording and responding to all who enter. Visitors often speak of an unsettling auditory phenomenon. Words spoken aloud return with a strange resonance, sometimes slow, sometimes fast, and occasionally warped into shapes that seem almost intelligible yet remain just out of understanding. Laughter or low murmurs can be heard in the distance, though no one is near. Even in the stillest sections, the forest seems alive with sound, bending ordinary noises into an intricate pattern that challenges perception. The energy of echo woods carries a sense of testing. Hikers describe moments where the forest seems to guide them, only to mislead, presenting obstacles that feel purposeful. Fallen logs and twisted roots appear to block paths. Fog may drift suddenly between trees, and shadows stretch in ways that make familiar surroundings feel foreign. There is a subtle insistence in the air, a quiet presence that observes patience, courage, and attention to detail. Every step taken feels measured, every pause deliberate, as though the forest responds to the choices of those who traverse it. Light in echo woods behaves unusually. Sun filters through the canopy in fragmented beams, creating moving patterns on the ground. Shadows bend and twist as if independent of their source. Dappled light may suggest movement, yet nothing appears when looked at directly. The interplay of shadow and illumination enhances the forest's sense of mystery, making every turn, every clearing, and every ridge feel like an exploration into the unknown. Birdsong and rustling leaves carry subtle layers of sound that are difficult to place. A call from a distant bird may echo as though coming from multiple directions. Leaves stirred by wind create patterns that seem deliberate, almost as if the forest itself orchestrates these movements. Water trickles in small streams, yet the echoes seem amplified, transformed into low tones that resonate through the ground. The effect is immersive, leaving visitors both captivated and slightly unsettled. Echo Woods does not feel malicious, yet it commands respect. The forest has an enduring presence, patient and aware, testing boundaries without aggression. Hikers report the sensation of being watched, a gentle pressure that is never immediate but constant. Moving too quickly or carelessly can intensify the feeling, while attentiveness and quiet observation often bring a sense of harmony with the environment. There is a rhythm to the forest, a pulse, that aligns with footsteps and breath, as though participation in its energy is both challenge and reward. Even the smallest details contribute to the forest's reputation. Moss-covered stones, twisted roots, and fallen branches form shapes that can appear human or animal-like. Shadows between trees can seem to shift independently, following movement or appearing where none should be. Fog rolling in from the nearby river can obscure vision entirely, leaving only sound and instinct to guide the way. Every element of the landscape enhances the sense that the forest is both alive and aware, a place where the line between natural and supernatural feels blurred. Encounters in echo woods are often brief yet memorable. A whisper drifting from an unseen source, a glowing reflection on a distant tree, or a sudden sense of presence can leave a lasting impression. Even when leaving the forest, hikers report that echoes seem to follow them, replaying words spoken aloud or steps taken along the trails. The forest leaves a trace in memory, a reminder that its energy extends beyond the boundaries of physical space. The forest is also a place of profound stillness. Quiet sections of trail allow for deep observation, revealing small patterns in movement, sound, and light. That suggest an intelligence behind the apparent chaos. These moments contrast with sudden disturbances, the unexpected echoes or shifting paths, emphasizing the duality of echo woods as both serene and unsettling. Visitors leave with a heightened awareness, a feeling that the forest's presence continues to resonate within them long after departure. Echo Woods endures as a unique and mysterious location along the Columbia River Gorge. Its twisting paths, distorted sound, and subtle tests create an experience unlike any other. The combination of natural beauty and unexplained phenomena leaves an impression that is both captivating and disquieting. Every visitor carries away the memory of footsteps that echo strangely, whispers that linger, and the quiet sense of being observed by something ancient and patient. To walk through echo woods is to step into a space where perception is challenged, and the ordinary becomes extraordinary, in a subtle dialogue with those who enter, that are difficult to forget, contributes to a hauntingly immersive experience, into a singular journey along the Columbia River Gorge. Spirit Thicket lies deep in the heart of the Cascades, a forest where light filters through the dense canopy in scattered beams, illuminating patches of moss and fallen leaves. The air is crisp and carries a subtle weight, as if the forest itself remembers every step taken within its bounds. Shadows stretch long between the towering trees, forming shapes that seem familiar yet impossible, and the silence is both heavy and alive, filled with the hidden sounds of wind to the branches and distant wildlife. Travelers to Spirit Thicket often speak of visions that appear unexpectedly. Silhouettes of old cabins and wagons rise between the trunks, fleeting and ethereal, as though the past has momentarily returned to claim the present. These apparitions are never threatening, yet they carry a presence that is both tangible and elusive. The forms shimmer in the corner of vision, vanishing when approached, leaving the mind to question whether they were ever truly there. The forest carries voices that ride the wind, soft and distant, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying. The sounds are fragmented, fleeting, yet they evoke strong emotions in those who hear them. It is as if the memories of lives long past have been captured by the trees, preserved in the air, and offered briefly to those who enter. Each whisper carries a story, a fragment of human experience that resonates with curiosity and unease, creating a connection between the living and the departed. Walking through Spirit Thicket, one cannot escape the feeling of being watched. The dense foliage and shifting shadows give the sense of eyes tracking movement from every angle. Some travelers report feeling a subtle presence close by, brushing against the senses like a phantom touch. There is a rhythm to the forest, a pulse that seems to synchronize with the heartbeat, making the experience both intimate and overwhelming. Every footstep echoes, yet the forest absorbs sound in unpredictable ways, creating moments where silence feels absolute and moments where it feels alive with unseen activity. The terrain itself adds to the mystique. Narrow paths wind through thick undergrowth. Fallen logs form natural barriers, and streams cut unexpected lines through the landscape. Mist often rises in the early morning, curling around tree trunks, and weaving through the forest floor, turning familiar landmarks into otherworldly shapes. The interplay of light and fog enhances the sense of timelessness, as though one has stepped into a place where past and present coexist. Many who spend time in Spirit Thicket describe a blend of awe and unease. The visions and sounds are captivating, yet they carry an underlying tension. Silhouettes of wagons or cabins may appear, only to dissolve moments later, leaving the observer with a sense of longing or curiosity. Voices may call out softly, yet no source is ever found. The forest seems to offer glimpses into a world that exists parallel to our own, a reality intertwined with memory and energy that has not faded with time. Even in daylight, the forest is deeply atmospheric. Sunlight filters in streaks, highlighting textures of bark, moss, and leaf litter, while other areas remain shrouded in shadow. The visual contrast heighten perception, making shapes and movements more pronounced. Travelers often report noticing details they would normally overlook. The sway of branches, the glint of dew, the way shadows stretch and shift as if alive. These small observations contribute to the feeling that the forest is engaged with those who walk its paths, that it responds subtly to attention and presence. The trees themselves seem to hold memories. Their towering forms and twisted roots create natural corridors and hidden spaces. Some are so old that their bark carries scars of long-forgotten events, yet they remain vibrant and alive. The forest absorbs and reflects energy, maintaining an atmosphere that is sensitive to human emotion and activity. Even small gestures, a pause in movement or a whispered word, can feel amplified in Spirit Thicket, echoing back in ways that are difficult to explain. Visitors often leave Spirit Thicket with a lingering impression, a sense that they have encountered something beyond the ordinary. The forest does not reveal its secrets fully, but it offers glimpses that are unforgettable. The combination of sights, sounds, and sensations creates an experience that is immersive, drawing attention to the invisible threads connecting the past and present. It is a place where memory and nature coexist, where human presence is both acknowledged and absorbed into the landscape, where the past and present intersect, and the veil between the worlds is thin. And the unknown lurks just beyond, waiting to be discovered, hidden in the shadows. Spirit Thicket is more than a forest. It is a living repository of stories, shadows, and voices. Each visit becomes a journey through time, a chance to witness the echoes of lives that have not fully departed. The silhouetted cabins, the fleeting wagons, and the whispers that ride the wind all contribute to a sense that the forest is both guardian and storyteller, preserving the intangible essence of those who once moved through its spaces. Would you dare to wander the paths of Spirit Thicket to witness the visions among the trees that rise and fade, and to hear the voices that rise and fade away, and to hear the voices that have vanished long after they should have vanished, leaving an imprint on the forest that is impossible to forget. Mistwood Grove awakens with quiet intensity as the first light of morning struggles to penetrate the dense canopy. Fog drifts lazily between the trees, curling around trunks and roots in shapes that seem almost intentional, as if the forest itself is breathing. Each step on the moss-covered ground releases a soft crunch, a reminder that the forest is alive in ways that are not immediately visible. As hikers move deeper into Mistwood Grove, the fog thickens, shifting unpredictably with every gust of wind. Trails once clear appear to dissolve, replaced by a wall of mist that obscures direction. The familiar becomes unfamiliar, and the mind begins to question its senses. Shadows flicker at the edges of vision, lingering for a heartbeat before vanishing entirely, leaving only a sense of being watched. Lights appear and disappear in impossible places. A glow might hover behind a cluster of trees, only to vanish when approached. The source is never revealed, and the effect is both mesmerizing and disorienting. Some visitors describe the lights as subtle and ethereal, faintly illuminating the mist, while others report brief flares that seem to pulse with their heartbeat, drawing attention and stirring curiosity. Whispers drift through the mist, carried by the wind and the hollow spaces between the trees. They are indistinct, fleeting, and impossible to attribute to any single source. Some interpret them as echoes of the forest itself, communicating in a language older than human comprehension. Others feel they are the lingering impressions of those who have walked these trails long before, their presence imprinted into the very air of Mistwood Grove. The trails themselves are deceptive. Paths that appear straight will bend unexpectedly, leading hikers back to where they began. Fallen branches and thick undergrowth shift subtly over time, creating a landscape that feels alive, a puzzle designed to challenge the visitor. Even experienced hikers report moments of disorientation, when a familiar landmark becomes unrecognizable, or the distance to the next clearing seems to stretch endlessly. Trees tower overhead, their branches interlocking to form a canopy that filters the light into ghostly patterns. Moss hangs like drapery, swaying with the slightest breeze, while roots twist in unexpected formations, creating natural obstacles and hidden hollows. The forest seems to pulse with intention, guiding and testing those who move through it, rewarding patience and observation, while punishing haste and distraction. Animals are rarely seen, yet their presence is felt. A sudden rustle, the glint of eyes catching the light, or the distant call of a bird creates a heightened sense of awareness. Every sound, Every movement becomes amplified, drawing attention to the forest's subtleties, and enhancing the sense that Mistwood Grove is not simply a backdrop, but a living participant in the journey. The air is thick and cool, carrying the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and faint hints of something less tangible, an aroma that seems to belong to the forest itself. Breathing it in evokes a strange sense of calm mingled with tension, as if the forest is offering both comfort and warning. Time moves differently here. A short walk can feel prolonged, and minutes can stretch into what seems like hours, reinforcing the sensation that the forest operates under its own rules. Those who linger in Mistwood Grove often report a sense of synchronicity with the surroundings. Steps fall in rhythm with the rustling leaves, and breathing aligns with the subtle sway of branches overhead. The forest demands attention, not in a violent way, but as a quiet insistence. It rewards awareness with fleeting glimpses of beauty, like a shaft of sunlight cutting through fog or a shadow moving gracefully among the trees. It rewards awareness with fleeting glimpses of beauty, like a shaft of sunlight cutting through the fog or a shadow moving gracefully among the trees. Visitors attempting to document these phenomena with cameras and audio equipment often find their efforts incomplete. Recordings are faint or distorted, images blurred or absent. The forest resists being fully captured, as if preserving its mysteries requires them to remain experienced rather than explained. The ephemeral quality of the lights, shadows, and whispers ensures that each encounter feels personal, unique, and fleeting. Evenings in Mistwood Grove are marked by an intensifying fog, a deepening quiet, and a sensation that the forest has shifted subtly into Visitora-esque absence. Shadows lengthen and merge, lights dance in the mist, and the whispers grow slightly louder, more insistent. Navigation becomes more challenging, and hikers find themselves relying on intuition, following instincts that seem guided by an unseen force. Despite the eerie sensations, there's a draw to Mistwood Grove that is difficult to resist. Its beauty is haunting, and its mysteries are compelling. Every turn in the trail offers the possibility of discovery, while simultaneously reminding visitors that the forest operates on its own terms. It teaches patience, observation, and respect for the unknown, revealing that some experiences are meant to be felt rather than fully understood. By nightfall, the grove takes on almost otherworldly quality. The fog thickens into shifting curtains. The trails vanish into shadows, and the sounds of the forest become layered and immersive. Each step is an interaction with the forest itself, a dance between curiosity and caution. Those who venture here come away changed, carrying with them the subtle impressions of a place where the ordinary rules of time, space, and perception are gently suspended. Mistwood Grove endures as a place of quiet mystery, a living labyrinth where fog, shadows, and whispers combine to create an experience unlike any other. It is a forest that tests, guides, and fascinates, leaving a lasting imprint on those who journey through its veiled paths. Even when the mist clears and the trails are once again visible under daylight, the echo of the forest lingers in memory, a reminder that some places are meant to be both beautiful and unknowable. Visitors leave with a sense of awe, carrying the forest-esque secrets like a weight and a gift. Mistwood Grove is more than a collection of trees and trails. It is a living entity, an ever-changing world of subtle signs and hidden wonders, inviting exploration while keeping its deepest mysteries just beyond reach. Shadowvale Forest stretches across the landscape like a living labyrinth, its trees standing close and tall, their branches intertwining to form a dense canopy that filters the sunlight into fragmented beams. The forest floor is a mosaic of moss, fallen leaves, and gnarled roots, creating a surface that is as uneven as it is quiet. Each step taken here carries a soft crunch that echoes in the still air, yet the echo seems to return from unexpected directions, adding to the forest's subtle disorientation. Visitors often notice that trails seem to twist in ways that defy logic. A path that appeared straight moments ago curves sharply, leading to sections of the forest that were not visible before. Trees that were familiar appear altered, their bark darker, their shapes slightly skewed, and shadows seem to stretch and bend unnaturally around them. The forest itself feels alive, aware of each movement, each pause, and each breath, subtly guiding those who wander within its boundaries. Shadowy forms appear at the edge of sight, lingering briefly before vanishing when observed directly. These figures are elusive, leaving only an impression of motion and presence. Sometimes they appear as fleeting silhouettes between the trunks, other times as faint shifts in the fog or the flutter of branches. The mind struggles to determine whether these are tricks of perception, the natural play of light and shadow, or something else entirely. Sounds in Shadowvale Forest are both subtle and disconcerting. Leaves rustle without wind. Twigs snap from unseen movements. Distant footsteps echo across the mossy floor. Always following but never approaching directly. Soft murmurs drift through the air, voices indistinct yet carrying an unmistakable sense of intent. The longer a visitor remains, the more acute the awareness becomes that the forest is not passive. It listens, observes, and responds in ways that cannot be easily explained. The atmosphere thickens as daylight fades. Nightfall transforms the forest into a realm of heightened tension and mystery. Shadows deepen. Fog gathers in slow, deliberate waves, and the air cools, carrying a subtle weight that presses against the skin. Every sound is amplified, every movement exaggerated. The glowing eyes of nocturnal creatures occasionally pierce the darkness, but often they are joined by shapes that are not so easily identified. In these moments, even the most experienced explorers feel a creeping unease, a sensation of being watched by something larger than themselves. Light behaves strangely within Shadowvale Forest. Beams of moonlight filter through the canopy, illuminating patches of moss, rocks, and leaves with spectral glow. Shadows shift in response, creating the illusion of movement where there is none. Fog drifts in patterns that seem intentional, curling around tree trunks, forming faint arches, and separating briefly to reveal open spaces before closing back in. These effects give the forest a dynamic, almost sentient quality, reinforcing the feeling that it is aware of every presence within it. The flora contributes to the forest's enigmatic nature. Moss covers rocks and roots in thick carpets, softening footsteps and absorbing sound. Ferns sway even when there is no breeze, their delicate fronds brushing against explorers as though acknowledging their presence. Fallen logs, slick with moisture, support tiny ecosystems of mushrooms and lichen that glow faintly in low light, adding to the otherworldly atmosphere. Every element of the forest seems attentive, contributing to the sense that the environment is alive in ways beyond ordinary perception. Wildlife behaves with unusual caution. Birds remain silent, perched high, and observing without movement. Small mammals scuttle quickly through underbrush and vanish before detection. Occasionally, a distant call or howl echoes across the forest, blending seamlessly with natural sounds. Every rustle, snap, and distant noise enhances the sense of being in a space that responds to the presence of visitors, one where ordinary rules of observation and expectation do not apply. Navigating the forest requires focus and respect. Trails may loop unexpectedly, leading travelers in circles, or divide into branches that seem to shift when approached. Landmarks can appear altered, and features that seem familiar can become unrecognizable. Even those familiar with the forest report moments of confusion, as if the landscape itself has shifted slightly to test their attention and awareness. This subtle manipulation creates a sense of suspense and curiosity, compelling visitors to proceed with caution while remaining acutely aware of their surroundings. The fog plays a particularly important role in the forest's character. Shapes appear and disappear within it, sometimes resembling distant figures or forms, sometimes simply twisting shadows, or dissipate to reveal fleeting glimpses of open spaces. This interplay between visibility and concealment keeps the mind alert, reinforcing the forest's reputation as a place where perception is challenged and ordinary senses cannot be fully trusted. Visitors often leave Shadowvale Forest with impressions that linger long after their departure. Time seems distorted within its boundaries, with minutes stretching into hours, and sequences of events appearing fragmented in memory. The forest imprints itself subtly on the mind, leaving a lingering sense of presence, awareness, and connection. Even recalling the experience brings a shiver, a reminder of the quiet power that the forest exerts over those who wander through its paths. The forest is a place of paradox. It is both inviting and unsettling, beautiful and mysterious, serene and disorienting. Every aspect, from its twisting trails to the ephemeral forms at the edge of vision, contributes to an immersive experience that engages both curiosity and caution. Those who explore it find themselves simultaneously captivated and aware of boundaries they cannot fully comprehend. Shadowvale Forest rewards mindfulness and careful observation, while gently reminding visitors that it holds secrets beyond ordinary understanding. Seasonal changes enhance its enigmatic qualities. Spring brings fog rising from damp earth, accompanied by the fresh scent of new growth. Summer nights are alive with subtle sounds of nocturnal insects and the distant calls of wildlife, though always interlaced with the forest's own untraceable murmurs. Autumn cloaks the area in muted reds and golds, while fallen leaves create a soft carpet that muffles footsteps and heightens a sense of mystery. Winter brings frost and silence, amplifying the quiet intensity and emphasizing the forest's ever-present awareness. Each season reveals a new layer of its character, while the core enigma remains unchanged. Shadowvale Forest is ultimately an environment that blends natural beauty with a persistent sense of the unknown. Its twisting trails, shifting shadows, and subtle phenomena create an experience that is immersive, memorable, and evocative. Visitors learn to move carefully, to notice details in light and sound, and to appreciate the delicate balance between curiosity and caution. The forest's presence lingers long after one has left, reminding all who enter that it is alive in ways that are perceptible, profound, and unforgettable. Walking through Shadowvale Forest at dusk or night is a lesson in awareness and perception. Every step, every glance into the fog, and every sound encounter contributes to a narrative that is part personal, part environmental, and part inexplicable. The forest communicates through subtle changes in light, movement, and sound, offering both beauty and tension, fascination and unease. To experience it fully is to recognize that nature itself can hold consciousness, observation, and response, creating a deeply engaging and unforgettable encounter for all who enter its shadows. Shadowvale Forest is a testament to the power of environment, perception, and mystery. The trails twist, shadows move, and whispers persist, forming an immersive world that engages a mind, sparks curiosity, and heightens awareness. Those who enter its depths emerge changed, carrying with them the memory of a forest that is alive, watching and subtly shaping the experience of everyone who steps beneath its canopy. Nightshade Hollow stretches deep into the forest, where towering trees form a dense canopy that filters the sunlight into scattered, moving patterns on the forest floor. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, and every step taken on the leaf-strewn paths carries a sense of anticipation. The hollow is alive with sound, both natural and inexplicable, and the further one ventures, the more aware they become of forest's presence. Distant laughter drifts through the trees, soft and melodic, yet impossible to place. Whispered voices echo along the paths, sometimes carrying words that seem almost familiar, only to dissolve into silence. The forest seems to respond to movement, bending sound and space into a subtle, unnerving rhythm. Hikers report that familiar trails appear to shift, paths rearranging themselves as if the hollow is testing those who traverse it. Every step is met with a heightened awareness of the environment, and the feeling of being watched grows steadily. Shadows move in ways that defy logic. Branches sway against the wind, and fog gathers in pockets, forming shapes that resemble figures standing just beyond reach. These forms appear humanoid, fleeting and ethereal, vanishing when approached yet leaving a lingering impression of presence. Glowing eyes are sometimes glimpsed in the underbrush or high among the trees, disappearing when looked at directly, creating a sensation that something is observing with patience and intent. The forest floor is uneven and strewn with roots, rocks, and fallen branches that catch the light in strange patterns. Sound are amplified or warped, footsteps echoing strangely, voices bouncing from tree to tree. Streams that cut through the hollow murmur softly, their ripples blending with distant laughter, creating a layered soundscape that is both enchanting and unsettling. The hollow manipulates the senses subtly, making ordinary experiences feel extraordinary and slightly off-kilter. Nightshade Hollow-S energy is persistent. It does not strike suddenly but seeps into awareness, an almost tangible presence that follows visitors along the trails. Some hikers describe feeling an invisible weight at their backs, a pull that encourages caution and awareness. Others notice sudden changes in temperature, with cool drafts appearing without warning, brushing along the neck or across the arms. These subtle signs remind those who walk the hollow that the forest is not merely a collection of trees, but a living, observing entity. Light in Nightshade Hollow behaves unpredictably. Sunlight flickers through the canopy in shifting beams, creating shadows that stretch unnaturally and move independently of the source. These visual distortions combine with the forest as sounds to create a sense of disorientation, reinforcing the feeling that this place exists slightly outside the rules of the ordinary world. Encounters with the hollow phenomena are often brief but memorable. A soft rustle may suggest movement where none is visible, or a whisper drifts past in a language that seems just on the edge of comprehension. Branches sway as if avoiding or acknowledging passage, and streams reflect shapes that vanish when examined closely. Branches sway as if avoiding or acknowledging passage, and streams reflect shapes that vanish when examined closely. The forest seems to interact with the living, responding to presence with subtle, layered feedback that challenges perception and evokes a sense of cautious wonder. The forest seems to interact with the living, responding to presence with subtle, layered feedback that challenges perception and evokes a sense of cautious wonder. Nightshade Hollow is also defined by contrast. Quiet sections of the forest offer serenity and focus, allowing visitors to notice the smallest details, the delicate flutter of leaves, the ripple of water over stones, the faintest of animal sounds. Moments later, the hollow shifts, shadows deepen, fog thickens, and sounds distort. This interplay between stillness and activity heightens awareness, keeping those who traverse the forest alert, engaged, and ever conscious of unseen layers of presence. The experience of Nightshade Hollow is cumulative. Every footstep, every glance into shadowed underbrush, and every faint whisper contributes to a growing sense of immersion. The hollow does not rely on startling displays or sudden movements. Instead, it builds atmosphere, layering visual, auditory, and sensory cues that create a profound impression of being in a space both alive and aware. Visitors often leave carrying memories of fleeting shapes, strange echoes, and the feeling that the forest itself has witnessed them. Even in the calmest hours, the hollow maintains an energy that is subtle but persistent. Patterns of movement, light, and sound suggest a presence that is not malevolent but vigilant. The forest tests attention, patience, and curiosity, rewarding careful observation with fleeting glimpses of phenomena that defy explanation. Glowing eyes, fog-formed shapes, and whispered voices leave a lasting impression, encouraging reflection on the hidden complexities of the natural world and the mysteries that may dwell within it. Nightshade Hollow endures as a place of mystery along the forested landscape. Its twisting paths, shifting shadows, and distorted sounds create an environment that is both mesmerizing and unnerving. Visitors leave with a sense that the hollow is not simply a location, but a living, reactive space, one that blends the natural and the extraordinary. Every step through the forest reinforces the idea that this is a place where perception is tested, and the unseen continues to shape the experience of the living. To walk through Nightshade Hollow is to enter a space where the ordinary rules of the world are subtly altered. Every shadow, every whispered sound, and every fleeting glow carries meaning, inviting observation, caution, and respect. The hollow leaves an impression that extends beyond the physical boundaries of the forest, lingering in thought, memory, and imagination. It is a place where the living encounter the echoes of the unseen, a forest that watches, responds, and remains alive long after the traveler has departed. Silver pine wood stretches deep into the heart of the wilderness, a dense forest where light filters through the canopy in scattered beams, leaving much of the undergrowth in shadow. The air is thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, and an unsettling stillness permeates the trails. Even in the daytime, the forest feels charged with energy, as if it reacts to the presence of those who enter, observing silently from behind trunks and branches. Visitors often speak of glowing orbs that drift between the trees. These lights are small and flickering, appearing at the edge of vision before moving closer or vanishing entirely. They hover above roots, float along the trails, and sometimes gather in clusters as if performing an invisible ritual. The orbs are captivating and eerie, filling the forest with a light that feels otherworldly, casting shadows that move in impossible ways. Along the winding trails, travelers report faint tapping that seems to follow their every step. The sound is subtle, rhythmic, and impossible to locate, echoing off trees and undergrowth. It creates a sense of awareness, a heightened sensitivity to movement and space. Alongside the tapping, many feel the brush of unseen hands against their arms or shoulders. The touches are brief and fleeting, leaving an almost electrical sensation that lingers long after the encounter. The forest seems to respond to movement in ways that are difficult to explain. Paths that should lead in a straight line twist unexpectedly, returning explorers to points they thought they had passed. Shadows stretch and shift independently of the light, creating shapes that appear to move in tandem with those walking below. Every step taken feels observed, every pause felt, as if the trees themselves are participating in an ancient, silent dance with the visitors. Silver Pine Woods is alive with sound beyond the tapping and whispers. Leaves rustle without wind. Distant branches snap under no apparent weight. And soft, indistinct voices seem to drift on the breeze. Sometimes the voices laugh, sometimes they sigh or murmur, never coherent but always present. They create a sense of being part of something larger, a connection between the forest and those who venture within it. The sounds evoke emotion, a mixture of curiosity, awe, and unease that follows each visitor long after they leave. Even the ground feels different in Silver Pine Woods. Moss-covered rocks, tangled roots, and fallen logs create a terrain that is both challenging and mysterious. Certain spots seem to vibrate with energy, drawing attention and hesitation in equal measure. The forest appears fluid, shifting subtly in response to those who walk its trails, blurring the lines between natural environment and something more enigmatic. The orbs and whispered voices are not the only phenomena. Shapes are often glimpsed among the trees, dark and indistinct, vanishing when approached. Some appear humanoid, standing quietly in clearings, only to dissolve into the shadows when looked at directly. These fleeting figures contribute to the feeling that Silver Pine Woods is inhabited, not by animals alone, but by something unseen that observes, interacts, and perhaps guides. At dusk, the forest transforms. The orbs become more numerous, drifting between trunks in complex patterns. Shadows deepen, and the whispers rise and fall with the wind. Trails that were easy to follow during the day become labyrinthine, while certain areas seem to open up as if inviting exploration. The atmosphere grows heavy with anticipation, and every sound is amplified, every movement imbued with meaning. Time in Silver Pine Woods feels different, slower, measured by the subtle rhythms of the forest itself rather than the sun or clock. The experience of walking through Silver Pine Woods is immersive and personal. Visitors often report a sensation of presence, a feeling that they are not alone even when entirely unobserved by other humans. The forest responds subtly to attention and intention, guiding or confusing those who enter. It is a place where perception is heightened, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and where the line between the natural and the supernatural seems to blur. Silver Pine Woods is not merely a forest. It is a living, breathing environment, filled with mystery and subtle energy. The glowing orbs, unseen touches, whispered voices, and shifting trails create a tapestry of experiences that linger in memory. Each journey into woods becomes a dialogue between visitor and forest, a negotiation of observation, intuition, and emotion. It is a place that demands respect, curiosity, and a willingness to encounter the unknown. Would you dare to enter Silver Pine Woods, to follow the drifting orbs, feel the brush of unseen hands, listen to the whispers that rise and fade, and experience a forest that responds to your very presence, leaving you forever changed by the subtle and mysterious energy that dwells within? Raven Cliff Thicket sits like a shadowed heart within the forest, where sunlight struggles to pierce the dense canopy. Branches twist overhead, forming a lattice that casts shifting patterns across the mossy floor. Each step stirs the fallen leaves and twigs, releasing the earthy scent of damp soil and decay. The air feels alive, thick with the quiet hum of unseen activity, as if the forest itself is watching, waiting, and breathing in unison with every visitor. As hikers venture deeper, the thicket transforms into a place where sound and perception bend. Cries of unseen animals echo from multiple directions, distorted and untraceable. The calls seem both near and far, sometimes blending into the wind, other times piercing with startling clarity. It is impossible to discern their source, leaving the mind to wander between rational explanation and instinctive unease. Shadows cling to the edges of the trails, pooling beneath gnarled roots and behind tree trunks. They appear just beyond direct sight, shifting as if aware of being observed. When approached, the shapes dissolve into the undergrowth or merge with the darkness, leaving only the lingering impression that something watched and then receded. The effect is subtle yet profound, a tension that persists without overt threat, coaxing both fascination and wariness from anyone who moves through the thicket. Raven Cliff Thicket challenges perception in other ways as well. Trails curve and twist with deliberate unpredictability, sometimes leading explorers back to points they thought they had passed, or to clearings that appear and vanish like mirages. The forest seems to test the resolve of those who enter, measuring attention and patience, rewarding those who move deliberately, punishing those who rush. The floor of a thicket contributes to its disorienting nature. Roots rise like natural barricades, forming uneven pathways that demand careful navigation. Moss-covered stones shift subtly in the Minda SI, appearing closer or farther than they truly are. Low-hanging branches brush against shoulders and faces, a tactile reminder that the forest is intimately aware of movement within it. Every sound, every subtle shift, becomes amplified, drawing attention to details that might otherwise go unnoticed. Light behaves unusually within Raven Cliff Thicket. Dappled rays filter to the canopy in irregular patterns, producing fleeting illuminations that cast more questions than clarity. In some moments, a patch of sunlight might reveal a trail marker or a fallen log, only for it to vanish into shadow as the observer moves. Flickers of light appear along paths in ways that defy explanation, suggesting movement where none is visible and reinforcing Takita's enigmatic presence. The sense of being observed intensifies as day wanes. Even the absence of clear shadows or shapes, a quiet awareness settles in the mind. Hikers describe it as both unsettling and captivating, a feeling that the forest recognizes their presence and measures their intent. Breaths become conscious, footsteps lighter and attention sharper, as if the forest itself is engaged in a subtle conversation, offering silent warnings through rustling leaves and shifting shadows. Sound within the thicket are layered and deceptive. A snap of a twig might come from behind or ahead, echoing unexpectedly, creating an illusion of multiple presences. The cries of unseen animals blend with the wind and distant water, forming an immersive soundscape that pulls the listener deeper into the forest. Each step becomes a negotiation with both perception and imagination, heightening the intensity of the experience. Nightfall magnifies these effects. Darkness drapes over the thicket like a heavy curtain, muffling sound and deepening shadows. Shapes that were once peripheral now dominate the senses, and trails that seem familiar during daylight become labyrinthine under the cover of night. The cries of the forest grow more frequent, resonant and untraceable, while the awareness of unseen observers becomes nearly tangible. It is a delicate balance between wonder and apprehension, a mixture that both captivates and unsettles. Raven Cliff Thicket leaves an impression long after the forest has been exited. Hikers often speak of an unshakable sense of observation, a lingering presence that continues to whisper in memory. The forest imprints itself subtly, shaping perception and remaining elusive in recollection. Every detail, from the curve of root to the flicker of light, gains significance in retrospect, forming a mosaic of experiences that blend reality and the uncanny. Even attempts at documentation fail to fully capture the thicket's essence. Photographs flatten depth and motion. Recordings blur sounds into indistinct static. The forest seems to resist being fully known or explained, preserving its mysteries in ways that reward personal experience over analytical understanding. The ephemeral nature of the shadows, cries, and flickers of light ensures that every encounter feels intimate, unique, and fleeting. Those who spend time in Raven Cliff Thicket often emerge changed, carrying a heightened awareness of the natural world and the subtle energies that permeate it. Its beauty and mystery coexist with an undercurrent of tension, forming an environment that is both captivating and cautionary. Raven Cliff Thicket endures as a sanctuary of the enigmatic, where shadows, sounds, and the whisper of the forest create an immersive experience unlike any other. It is a place that challenges perception, invites curiosity, and leaves lasting impressions on those who traverse its hidden paths. Even after leaving, the Thikita-esque presence lingers, a subtle echo that reminds visitors that the forest watches, remembers, and exists beyond the boundaries of immediate understanding. In this living labyrinth, every step becomes part of the story. Shadows shift, cries resonate, and trails curve unpredictably, ensuring that the forest remains a mystery, both beautiful and unnerving. Raven Cliff Thicket is not merely a collection of trees and undergrowth, but a realm where observation, intuition, and respect converge, leaving behind an experience that resonates long after the forest itself has receded from view. Frostbite Hollow stretches across the landscape like a frozen labyrinth, its trees coated with frost and ice that sparkle faintly in the weak winter sunlight. The ground is hard and brittle underfoot, blanketed in a thin layer of snow that crunches sharply with every careful step. Cold air flows through the forest in sudden gusts, carrying a biting chill that seems to penetrate deeper than mere temperature, leaving visitors shivering and aware of every movement. The forest feels alive with a presence that goes beyond natural perception. Even in the brightness of day, shadows linger unnaturally, and the wind whispers through the branches in a way that carries faint, unintelligible voices. Frozen streams weave silently through the hollow, their surfaces reflecting the skeletal shapes of frost-laden trees. Occasionally, figures are glimpsed near the banks, fleeting silhouettes that vanish the instant they are noticed, leaving only a lingering impression of motion. Footsteps echo across areas where no one has walked. The snow seems to record the passage of invisible travelers, with prints appearing and disappearing without explanation. Each step a visitor takes feels measured and observed, as if the hollow itself is aware of their presence and responding in subtle, deliberate ways. The sensation is not malevolent, yet it is impossible to ignore. A quiet tension builds with every moment spent among the icy trunks and frozen streams. The hollow's landscape is varied and treacherous. Isolated branches hang low, threatening to snap under their own weight, and fallen logs glisten with frost that can turn slippery without warning. The terrain challenges those who move through it, demanding attention to detail and careful navigation. Even experienced travelers report disorientation, with familiar landmarks appearing altered, twisted, or displaced by the play of light, shadow, and mist that drifts through the hollow in soft, shifting patterns that can turn slippery without warning. And fallen logs glisten with frost that can turn slippery without warning. The terrain challenges those who move through it, demanding attention to detail and careful navigation. Even experienced travelers report disorientation, with familiar landmarks appearing altered, twisted, or displaced by the play of light, shadow, and mist that drifts through the hollow in soft, shifting patterns. And the hollow's landscape is varied and treacherous. Fog often settles into Frostbite Hollow, thick and cold, curling along the ground like smoke. It drifts silently around tree trunks, obscuring paths and revealing glimpses of open areas before retreating once more. Light refracts through the mist in pale, icy hues, creating a dreamlike environment that is both beautiful and unsettling. Shadows bend and stretch, forming shapes that seem to move independently of the trees and terrain. Observers find themselves questioning whether what they see is real or a trick of the hollow itself. The forest is alive with subtle sounds. Snow crunches underfoot, distant branches snap, and the wind carries eerie tones that seem almost melodic in their cadence. Faint, ghostly whispers brush against ears, too soft to understand, yet compelling in their insistence. Footsteps follow at intervals, often out of sync with the visitor's own movement, leaving the impression that someone or something moves nearby, hidden yet persistent. Even birds and wildlife behave differently, their calls muted or absent, replaced by a pervasive silence that enhances a Hollow-esque otherworldly character. Light within Frostbite Hollow behaves unpredictably. Sunlight piercing through the canopy illuminates frost and snow with dazzling brilliance. Yet deep shadows remain stubbornly dark. Reflection off ice-covered surfaces can create illusions of shapes or movement. In certain areas, shafts of light reveal more than the forest intended. Glinting off frozen branches and catching the eye of travelers, drawing attention to empty spaces or fleeting figures. The interplay of light and cold enhances the forest's sense of being watched, of existing in a realm where ordinary perception is challenged. The hollow exerts a subtle influence on those who enter. Time seems to distort, with minutes stretching longer than they should, and paths that seemed clear moments ago suddenly disappearing or looping back in unexpected ways. Memory can feel fragmented, as if the forest records experiences selectively, leaving gaps that heighten the sense of mystery. Visitors often feel a lingering connection to the hollow even after leaving, a quiet awareness that something unseen has observed and acknowledged them during their journey. Seasonal variations further alter the hollow-esque character. Winter brings the heaviest frost, deepest snow, and coldest gusts, creating an environment of stark beauty and isolation. Spring thaws parts of the forest, creating icy streams that gurgle beneath melting snow, and fog rises in slow, curling patterns that seem deliberate. Summer softens a hollow with a brief reprieve from cold. Yet shadows and whispers remain, a reminder that the forest's presence is constant. Autumn coats the landscape with thin frost that glimmers under the low sun, emphasizing the contrast between light and shadow, warmth and chill. The hollow is a place of paradox. It is both inviting and intimidating, serene yet full of subtle tension. The frozen beauty, the reflective streams, and the delicate patterns of frost captivate. Yet the fleeting figures, mysterious footsteps, and whispering winds ensure that curiosity is tempered by caution. Exploration here demands mindfulness, patience, and respect for the environment, which seems attentive to every movement and responsive in ways that are impossible to quantify. Frostbite Hollow teaches visitors to be observant, to notice small details in sound, light, and movement. Every ripple of wind, shift of mist, and distant crunch contributes to an immersive narrative that blends natural phenomena with perception of the supernatural. The forest does not shout its presence. It whispers, drawing attention to subtleties that reveal its awareness and character. Those who are attentive leave with an appreciation of the hollow-esque power and a lingering impression of its enigmatic nature. The hollow's frozen streams are particularly mesmerizing. Ice forms in intricate patterns, catching light and creating reflections that seem to animate the water beneath. Occasional cracks appear without warning, producing sharp, sudden sounds that echo through the trees. Sometimes figures are glimpsed near these streams, their forms indistinct yet unmistakable, leaving the observer to wonder whether they are spirit, shadow, or an effect of the icy light. These fleeting glimpses contribute to the forest's sense of being alive, observant, and interactive. Even for those who pass through during daylight, the hollow carries a spectral presence. Frost and ice create a pale, ethereal glow, while shadows shift unexpectedly, forming shapes that suggest movement. Wind brushes against the skin with a sudden chill, almost like a whisper of attention, reminding travelers that they are not alone. Every step feels observed. Every glance into the distance holds a possibility of a fleeting figure, and every sound resonates with subtle intention. Frostbite Hollow is ultimately a place of wonder and quiet tension. Its cold, reflective beauty captivates, while its elusive forms, mysterious footsteps, and ghostly sensations unsettle. The forest rewards those who move carefully, notice details, and respect its character, yet leaves no room for complacency. To walk its paths is to engage with a living environment that observes, responds, and lingers in memory long after leaving. Every visitor leaves with a story, a sense of mystery, and a heightened awareness of the subtle forces at play within Frostbite Hollow. The frozen air, drifting fog, and shimmering ice create an experience that is immersive, memorable, and profoundly atmospheric. It is a forest that captivates the imagination, challenges perception, and leaves a lasting impression on all who dare to explore its cold, enigmatic paths. The atmosphere is melancholic, mysterious, and supernaturally dreadful. Darkmoor Pine stretches across rolling hills and dense forest, a place where the natural world seems to fold in on itself. Tall pines rise like sentinels, their trunks dark and weathered, casting shadows that twist unnaturally in the fading light. The forest floor is thick with needles, moss, and fallen branches. Creating a carpet that muffles footsteps yet amplifies every rustle, every crack, and every snap of twig underfoot. Travelers report that paths here rarely behave as expected. Trails loop unexpectedly, leading back to points that should have been passed long ago. Familiar trees appear in new places and clearings shift position, creating a sense that the forest itself rearranges a landscape. Mist often settles in the hollowed valleys, distorting depth perception and making distances impossible to judge. Rocks and roots appear closer or further than they are, and the horizon can seem to bend, giving the forest a disorienting, almost surreal quality. The air in Darkmoor Pines is cool and damp, carrying the scent of pine resin, wet earth, and fog. Even in bright daylight, there is a sense of weight in the atmosphere, a quiet tension that whispers of observation. Travelers often feel watched, the sensation subtle at first, but growing as they move deeper into the forest. Shadows cling to the edge of vision, moving just beyond the limits of perception. They vanish when approached, leaving nothing behind but the lingering sense of presence. Sound behaves unusually here. Footsteps echo in unexpected ways, sometimes returning from directions that do not align with the terrain. And leaves rustle even when the air is still, and distant sounds of movement carry unnaturally far. Some report hearing soft whispers, faint and elusive, as if the forest itself is speaking in a language beyond comprehension. Streams and small creeks weave through the underbrush, their trickling water reflecting light, and creating shapes that shift and shimmer as if alive. Light interacts with the forest in ways that reinforce its disorienting nature. Sunlight filters through the canopy in broken patterns, creating shifting shapes on the ground. Shadows lengthen and twist, sometimes merging with the mystiform figures that appear human but dissipate when approached. The interplay of shadow, fog, and sunlight creates a sense of layered reality, where what is seen can change in an instant and perception is constantly challenged. Travelers often describe a sensation of testing, as if Darkmoor Pines evaluates those who move through it. The forest has presence is persistent but subtle, guiding attention and eliciting caution. Fallen logs and twisted roots form obstacles that seem deliberate, and mist may appear in low areas, directing movement without a visible hand. Those who enter must navigate carefully, observing each detail, as the forest responds to awareness and action with shifts in space and perception. Encounters with shadowy figures are common. They are rarely close enough to be fully seen, glimpsed instead as movements in periphery. Sometimes they seem to pause, observing, or mirror the movements of travelers from a distance. Their forms are never distinct, yet their presence is unmistakable. Hikers often report a heightened awareness of surroundings, a sense of being followed or studied, even when the forest appears empty. Darkmoor pines has an enduring, almost timeless quality. The mist thickens in the valleys as evening falls, curling around trees and rocks in slow, deliberate patterns. Streams reflect the fading light, and shadows stretch across the forest floor, shifting in ways that defy logic. The forest seems to pulse with a quiet energy, one that is subtle yet undeniable. Time feels fluid here, moments stretching or contracting, leaving travelers unsure how long they have been within its depths. The forest's beauty is inseparable from its mystery. Towering pines and dense undergrowth create an immersive environment, alive with movement, sound, and shadow. Even brief visits leave a lasting impression. As every glance into mist, every ripple of movement, and every distorted echo becomes part of memory, rewarding careful attention with glimpses of phenomena that challenge understanding. Darkmoor Pines does not rely on startling appearances. Its effect is cumulative, building through sensory experiences that combine visual distortion, altered sound, shifting terrain, and an undeniable presence. Travelers emerge carrying memories of misformed shapes, shadowy movements, and the subtle sense of being observed. These impressions linger long after leaving the forest, a reminder that Darkmoor Pines is not merely a collection of trees and trails, but a living, reactive environment. To move through Darkmoor Pines is to enter a space where perception is constantly tested. Every path taken, every shadow glimpsed, and every echo heard contributes to an immersive, cinematic experience. The forest exists simultaneously as natural and enigmatic, a place where the ordinary rules of space and time are subtly altered, and where the living encounter a presence that has endured for generations. The looping paths, shifting trees, and pervasive mist create an experience that is both mesmerizing and disorienting. Shadowy figures, distorted sounds, and fluidity of space ensure that every visit is unique, each step a journey into an environment that is alive, observant, and enduring. Every return from its depths carries with the memory of a forest that continues to exist just beyond ordinary perception, quietly watching, shifting, and shaping the experience of all who enter. Bleakwood Grove stretches deep into the wilderness, a forest dominated by thick underbrush and towering evergreens that block much of the sunlight. The canopy above is dense, casting long shadows across the forest floor, while fallen branches and twisted roots create an uneven terrain that challenges every step. The air is heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, and even in daylight, there's a sense of quiet that feels almost unnatural, as if the forest itself holds its breath, observing every movement. The winds in Bleakwood Grove carry whispers, soft and unintelligible, weaving through the trees with a rhythm that feels deliberate. These sounds are fleeting, appearing in one moment and gone the next, leaving only the impression that someone or something is present just beyond sight. Every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs seems amplified, adding to the tension and mystery of the grove. Figures are often glimpsed between the trees, moving with fluidity that defies natural motion. At first, they appear human, but their movements are smooth, almost gliding and impossible to anticipate. When approached, the figures vanish, leaving only the feeling that they were there moments ago. These encounters are brief yet profound, lingering in memory long after the forest is left behind. The presence of these shapes adds to the sense that Bleakwood Grove exists on the edge of reality, a place where the ordinary laws of nature seem altered. The forest is alive in subtle ways. Small movements in the underbrush suggest unseen creatures, yet often nothing is revealed. Shadows shift independently of light, forming patterns that seem purposeful. The air is filled with faint sounds, the scraping of branches, or the rustle of leaves with no apparent source. These moments create an immersive experience, one where the senses are heightened and every step is measured, as if the forest itself is aware of those who walk its paths. Navigating the grove can be disorienting. Trails appear and disappear, familiar landmarks seem to shift, and the dense undergrowth obscures vision. Light and shadow play across the forest floor, creating illusions that make it difficult to distinguish reality from imagination. Every path feels alive, reacting to movement and presence, guiding or confusing those who enter. The atmosphere of Bleakwood Grove is both captivating and unsettling. The combination of whispering winds, shadowed figures, and shifting paths creates an environment where curiosity and caution coexist. Visitors often describe a sense of being part of something larger, connected to the energy of the forest itself. The sounds and sights are fleeting yet intense, leaving a lingering awareness that the forest remembers each footstep, each pause, and each whispered thought. The grove's evergreens rise like silent sentinels, their branches stretching high above and forming natural corridors that channel light and sound. Sunlight filtering through the canopy highlights textures of moss, bark, and fallen leaves, yet much of the forest remains in darkness. The interplay of light and shadow enhances the feeling of movement within the trees, making shapes appear and disappear with every glance. It is a place where perception is tested, where ordinary observation becomes a dialogue with the environment. Bleakwood Grove is not only a forest of sights and sounds, but sensations. The air seems to vibrate subtly, as if charged with energy that responds to presence. Small touches on the skin, a brushing along an arm, or a fleeting chill, are often reported by those walking the trails. These experiences are gentle yet undeniable, adding to the sense that the forest is more than just a collection of trees, that it is aware, conscious, and engaged with those who enter. Even moments of silence in the grove are profound. The absence of wind or wildlife creates an intensity, a feeling that time is suspended. In these quiet moments, the forest reveals its depth, showing the subtle movements of branches, the sway of shadows, and the faint glimmer of light on moss and leaf litter. Every detail becomes significant, contributing to the overall impression that Bleakwood Grove is a living, breathing entity with its own rhythm and awareness. Those who leave the forest often carry a lingering impression, a mixture of awe and unease. The fleeting figures, whispering winds, and subtle touches remain in memory, as if the grove has left a trace on the mind. It is a place that challenges perception, engages the senses, and evokes emotions that are both mysterious and profound. Each encounter with the forest feels unique, a personal interaction with an environment that is ancient, enigmatic, and alive. Bleakwood Grove is more than a forest. It is a space where the natural and the unexplained coexist. Every shadow, every whisper, every movement through the underbrush contributes to an atmosphere that is immersive and unforgettable. The forest draws attention to the unseen, the subtle, and the fleeting, making it clear that there are layers of reality that exist just beyond ordinary sight. Would you dare to walk the trails of Bleakwood Grove, to sense the shifting shadows, hear the whispering winds, and witness the fleeting forms that glide silently among the trees, leaving an impression of a forest that is alive in ways you cannot fully comprehend? Hollow Mist Forest stretches across the landscape like a veil of secrets, where fog gathers and lingers in thick, undulating waves. The morning light struggles to penetrate the dense canopy, and every tree trunk seems to emerge in the mist with an ethereal glow. The forest floor is soft with moss and fallen leaves, muffling footsteps and adding to the quiet, expectant atmosphere that hangs over the trails. As visitors venture deeper, the fog thickens and shifts unpredictably, obscuring paths and creating illusions of space and depth. Shadows appear and vanish at the edges of vision, slipping between trunks and behind low-hanging branches. There is a sensation that the forest is alive beyond what can be seen, moving subtly in response to every motion, every sound. The air feels heavy with presence, a weight that presses gently against the senses, drawing attention to the unseen. Sounds in hollow mist forest are layered and deceptive. A rustle of leaves may come from behind or ahead, sometimes accompanied by distant, untraceable whispers carried on the fog. The cries of birds or distant animals are stretched and warped, echoing unnaturally between the trees. Every sound feels amplified yet elusive, creating a sense of immersion that blurs the line between reality and imagination. The trails themselves challenge perception. A path that seemed clear a moment ago may vanish into a wall of mist, requiring careful attention and steady footing. Fallen logs and tangled roots appear in unexpected places, forming obstacles that demand awareness and patience. The forest seems to respond to the pace and intent of those who move through it, sometimes guiding gently, other times deterring subtly, as if protecting hidden spaces and secrets. Hollow mist forest is a place where light behaves unpredictably. Patches of brightness flicker through the canopy, creating shifting patterns on the ground, while dense pockets of fog create pockets of near-complete darkness. The interplay of light and shadow forms shapes that resemble figures or movements, provoking a heightened awareness in anyone present. These fleeting glimpses, real or imagined, contribute to a sense of extraordinary and reinforce the forest's enigmatic nature. Visitors often report moments of disorientation. Distances feel altered, familiar landmarks seem to change position, and time itself appears to stretch or compress. A short walk can feel prolonged, and minutes may slip by unnoticed, leaving a lingering sense of being in a space governed by its own subtle rules. These distortions are never threatening, yet they deepen the feeling that hollow mist forest exists beyond ordinary perception. The floor of the forest adds to the otherworldly experience. Trees rise in irregular patterns, their trunks thick with moss and lichen. Branches intertwine overhead, forming natural arches that filter light into soft, ghostly rays. Fallen leaves, damp and heavy, create a carpet that dampens sound, and hidden streams trace subtle paths through the undergrowth. Every element of the forest appears purposeful, contributing to a sense that the environment is aware of each presence within it. Shadows play across the forest floor and the trunks of trees, forming shapes that shift with the fog and the movement of the observer. At times, a figure seems to loom or retreat, only to dissolve when examined closely. These fleeting forms create a sense of interaction with unseen forces, reinforcing the impression that hollow mist forest is alive, not just in the usual sense, but in a way that observes, responds, and shapes experience. Despite the uncertainty and subtle tension, there's a captivating beauty here. The fog casts the forest in soft, silvery hues, and the interplay of light, shadow, and mist produces vistas that are both haunting and serene. Streams glint faintly in the filtered light, and the gentle sway of branches overhead create a rhythm that feels almost like breathing. The forest rewards careful observation, revealing moments of wonder that are hidden to hurried or inattentive eyes. Nightfall amplifies the forest's enigmatic qualities. Darkness thickens the fog and deepens the shadows, while the sound of wildlife shifts into a muted, layered symphony. Cries of unseen creatures echo in the distance, and the subtle movements of the mist make trails appear and disappear. The sensation of being watched intensifies, yet remains gentle, a constant reminder that hollow mist forest is not passive, but an active participant in the experience of those who enter. Visitors often leave hollow mist forest with a lingering sense of awe and curiosity. The forest imprints itself subtly on the mind, leaving traces of the mist, the shifting shadows, and ethereal glow in memory. Even after departing, there's a feeling that the forest continues to observe, that its presence lingers in thought and perception, guiding reflection on what was seen, heard, and felt. Attempts to document the phenomena with cameras or recorders rarely capture the full effect. Sounds are muffled or distorted, and the glowing mist is difficult to reproduce in a single frame. The forest preserves its mysteries, offering experiences that are ephemeral and personal. Hollow mist forest is more than a collection of trees and trails. It is a living environment that engages the senses, challenges perception, and evokes a profound awareness of the unknown. The fog, the shadows, and the gentle manipulations of presence combine to create an immersive experience that is simultaneously beautiful, mysterious, and unforgettable. Those who spend time within Hollow Mist Forest often describe a subtle transformation. Steps become measured, awareness sharpens, and senses attune to the rhythms of the environment. The forest teaches patience, observation, and respect for subtlety, offering rewards to those who move carefully and thoughtfully through its depths. Even when the sun rises and the mist begins to lift, the memory of Hollow Mist Forest remains. Shadows, whispers, and the otherworldly glow leave impressions that linger in thought and perception. The forest exists as a realm of quiet mystery, a place where the natural and the intangible meet, inviting exploration, reflection, and a sense of reverent wonder that endures long after the trails have been left behind. Valewood stretches across the landscape like a living shadow, its trees rising tall and close together, their branches intertwining to form a dense canopy. Its trees rising tall and close together, their branches intertwining to form a dense canopy. Mist drifts between the trunks, curling along the forest floor and wrapping around roots and fallen logs in slow, deliberate motions. Curling along the forest floor and wrapping around roots and fallen logs in slow, deliberate motions. The air carries a damp, earthy scent, mingled with faint hints of moss and decaying leaves, grounding visitors even as the forest seems to pull them deeper into its depths. Mingled with faint hints of moss and decaying leaves, grounding visitors even as the forest seems to pull them deeper into its depths. Grounding visitors even as the forest seems to pull them deeper into its depths. Figures are sometimes glimpsed among the trees, motionless and distant, only to vanish when approached. Shadows bend and shift along the edges of vision, forming shapes that seem alive yet impossible to define. Trails appear to change subtly, turning familiar routes into unfamiliar passages. A path that seemed straight a moment ago may curve sharply or divide in ways that challenge perception. Hikers describe a growing awareness that the forest itself is observing, guiding, and responding to their movements. Sounds in Valewood are both subtle and disorienting. Leaves rustle without wind. Occasionally, faint murmurs drift through the mist, too soft to understand, yet carrying the weight of intent. Footsteps echo where no one has walked, and distant sounds seem amplified, making the forest feel alive and responsive. Even the most seasoned explorers report a creeping unease, a sense that they are being watched for hours, both inside the forest and after leaving its boundaries. Mist and shadow merge to create an atmosphere that is simultaneously serene and unsettling. Shafts of light from the sky filter through the canopy, illuminating patches of moss, rocks, and undergrowth in pale, spectral hues. Shadows stretch and twist independently of their sources, creating the illusion of movement where there is none. Fog drifts in patterns that seem intentional, curling around trunks and branches, forming temporary barriers, revealing openings and concealing the Forsta-esque secrets. The flora contributes to Valewood's mysterious character. Ferns sway even without a breeze, their delicate fronds brushing against legs and arms as if acknowledging presence. Fallen logs, damp and slippery, support ecosystems of mushrooms and lichen that add to the ethereal quality of the forest. Each element seems attentive, enhancing the sense that the forest is alive in ways that extend beyond ordinary perception. Wildlife behaves unusually here. Birds are often silent, perched high and observing. Small mammals scurry quickly through the underbrush and vanish before detection. Occasionally, a distant call or rustle breaks the stillness, blending seamlessly with the sounds of mist and shadow. The forest communicates through these subtle signals, leaving visitors alert and aware of a presence that seems to accompany every step. Time in Valewood feels altered. Minutes stretch and compress in ways that are difficult to track. Familiar landmarks can appear changed, while paths that seemed clear moments ago can twist or loop unexpectedly. Visitors report fragmented memories upon leaving, unable to recall the exact sequence of events or describe all that they experienced. The forest leaves impressions that linger, creating a sense of connection and curiosity long after the hike has ended. Seasonal changes alter the forest's personality. In spring, mist rises from damp earth, carrying the scent of new growth and decay. Summer brings longer days and filtered sunlight, yet shadows and the subtle presence of figures persist. Autumn coats the ground in muted reds and golds, leaves crunching softly underfoot. Winter blankets the forest in frost and snow, amplifying the quiet intensity and giving every sound a hollow resonance. Each season presents a new layer of Valewood's enigmatic character, yet its core sense of mystery remains constant. Light behaves in unpredictable ways. Beams filter through the canopy, casting bright spots that illuminate frost, moss, or mist, while leaving surrounding shadows dark and foreboding. Reflections from wet surfaces create illusions of shapes or figures, and the shifting fog enhances the forced sense of movement and life. Observers often question whether what they see is real or a product of perception, yet the sensations are undeniably compelling, leaving a lasting impression on the mind. Visitors often describe the forest as having intention. Trails seem to guide or redirect. Shadows and mist respond to movement. Figures appear and vanish at the edge of vision. Even after leaving, hikers report feeling observed, as if the forest continues to watch from beyond the trees, silently following their memory, imprinting itself on the consciousness. The subtle awareness creates a deep connection between the forest and those who wander within it. Valewood is a place of paradox. It is inviting yet disorienting, beautiful yet unsettling, serene yet filled with subtle tension. Every step taken, every glance into the mist, and every sound encountered contributes to an immersive narrative that blends natural beauty with an unexplainable sense of presence. Exploration demands mindfulness, patience, and respect, rewarding visitors who pay attention while gently cautioning against overconfidence. The fog plays a significant role in shaping perception. This interplay of concealment and revelation draws explorers deeper, encouraging careful observation and reinforcing the forest's enigmatic nature. Even the smallest details contribute to Valewood's atmosphere. The sway of a branch, the glimmer of dew on a leaf, the soft murmur of wind through moss, and the fleeting impression of a figure, all combine to create a cohesive experience that feels alive and intentional. The forest communicates subtly, leaving impressions that linger, and memories that challenge perception. Valewood remains both beautiful and haunting. The merging of mist and shadow, the shifting trails, and the fleeting figures, and the whispered sounds, create an environment that captivates, unsettles, and fascinates. Visitors learn to walk carefully, observe closely, and respect the forest's presence, aware that they are part of a living, responsive landscape. Those who venture into Valewood leave with stories and sensations that endure. The forest's quiet awareness, shifting trails, and elusive figures embed themselves in memory. Shadows and mist, light and sound, all blend into a narrative that continues long after leaving. A story of curiosity, observation, and subtle connection. Valewood is a forest that watches, responds, and lingers, offering an experience that is immersive, unforgettable, and quietly profound. Ashen Grove spreads across a landscape marked by fire and renewal, where charred remains of trees stand as silent witnesses to events long past. The ground is layered with ash and blackened bark, forming a muted carpet that softens footsteps but seems to absorb sound, creating an uncanny stillness. The air is thick with the scent of smoke and earth, carrying a weight that presses against the senses. And heightens awareness of the environment. The grove feels alive with memory. Shadows shift in unnatural patterns, stretching along the burnt trunks and broken limbs, moving independently of the fading light. Occasional gusts of wind stir the ash, lifting it into swirling patterns that resemble fleeting shapes. These movements appear deliberate, as if the grove itself is aware of those who wander within it, observing every step, every pause, and every glance. Temperature changes in Ashen Grove are sudden and unsettling. A warm day may give way to a chilling draft that flows without warning, brushing against the skin, and causing the hair on the neck to rise. These shifts enhance the sense of presence, reinforcing the idea that the grove is more than a collection of burned trees and scorched earth. Every movement, every change in light, and every sound contributes to the atmosphere, making visitors hyper-aware of the environment around them. The paths within the grove twist and diverge unexpectedly. Burnt roots and fallen branches form natural obstacles that guide movement, often forcing travelers to pause, observe, and choose carefully. Small clearings occasionally appear, offering a sense of relief and perspective, only to lead back into tighter, darker passages where shadows grow and mist gathers close to the ground. The Groviesque design seems intentional, a combination of natural growth and the residual energy of past fire, shaping an immersive experience that challenges perception. Sound in Ashen Grove are amplified and distorted. Footsteps echo softly, sometimes returning from unexpected directions. The wind carries whispers through the broken branches, the rustle of ash sounding almost like distant movement. Cracks in char can create sudden pops that startle and heighten awareness, while the faint sigh of air moving through hollows adds a layer of unease. The grove seems to manipulate sound subtly, turning ordinary noises into elements that reinforce its haunting nature. Light behaves unpredictably here. Sun filters through skeletal branches, casting fractured patterns on the ground. Shadows stretch and bend in ways that defy expectation, merging with lingering mist to create illusions of movement. Even in full daylight, parts of the grove feel dim and enclosed, as if the charred trees absorb the brightness, leaving only the suggestion of illumination. These shifting patterns of light and shadow intensify the sense that Ashen Grove exists partially outside ordinary perception. Visitors often describe a sensation of being observed. The grove exerts a quiet, constant pressure, a sense that unseen eyes follow every step. Shadowed forms appear at the edge of vision, vanishing when directly looked at, leaving a lingering impression that something is present without fully revealing itself. The energy of the grove is not aggressive, but it is insistent, encouraging attentiveness, respect, and careful movement through the charred landscape. Ashen Grove carries a historical resonance. The charred trees and scorched earth preserve the intensity of fire and decay. Every burnt trunk and fallen limb tells a story, adding layers of depth to the environment. The grove feels like a bridge between past and present, a space where natural processes and residual energy merge, creating a hauntingly immersive experience for those who enter. The atmosphere is enhanced by subtle visual cues. Ash swirls and eddies along the forest floor, sometimes forming fleeting shapes. Charred branches bend at odd angles, resembling abstract figures. Even small details, like the glint of sunlight on blackened bark, contribute to the sense of presence. The shimmer of mist in a hollow contributes to the sense of presence. Every element of the environment is imbued with life, memory, and mystery, amplifying sensation that Ashen Grove observes and responds to movement. Travelers report brief encounters with phenomena that defy explanation. A shadow moving independently of natural light, a sudden chill that passes without wind, or the fleeting impression of shapes forming and dispersing in the mist. These experiences are subtle yet memorable, leaving a lasting impression of a place that is alive in ways beyond ordinary understanding. The grove encourages awareness, curiosity, and reflection, demanding attention to the small, almost imperceptible details that define its character. Even moments of stillness in Ashen Grove carry weight. Silence is not emptiness, but presence that presses against the senses. The fall of ash, the sway of skeletal branches, the faint trickle of water through scorched soil. These pauses create a rhythm, a cadence that guides travelers, heightening anticipation and engagement. The grove's energy is cumulative, building from quiet observation to full immersion. In its haunting atmosphere, Ashen Grove is a place where fire and decay have left more than physical marks. It is a forest alive with memory, observation, and subtle phenomena that challenge perception. Every charred tree, shifting shadow, and flicker of mist contributes to an experience that is immersive and unforgettable. Travelers leave with a lingering sense of a presence that is patient, observant, and enduring. A reminder that some landscapes hold the echoes of events long past, quietly shaping the experience of the living. To walk through Ashen Grove is to step into a space where natural beauty and haunting memory intertwine. Every step, glance, and sensation reinforces the presence of the Forster S energy, a combination of residual fire, decay, and subtle awareness. The grove is not threatening, yet commands respect, drawing attention to the interplay of light, shadow, and sound. Every visitor departs carrying the imprint of an atmosphere, the memory of charred trees, shifting shadows, and a quiet sensation of being observed by a living, breathing landscape that has endured beyond the ordinary flow of time. Silent Pine stretches deep into the wilderness, a forest where towering pines and thick undergrowth create an almost impenetrable canopy. Sunlight filters through in narrow beams, illuminating patches of moss and fallen needles, while much of the forest floor remains shrouded in shadow. The air is crisp and carries the scent of pine resin and damp earth, and the quiet is so profound that even distant movements seem swallowed by the trees. Walking through Silent Pines, one quickly becomes aware of the Forster's unique stillness. Sounds that would normally carry footsteps, voices, or the rustle of leaves are muted, absorbed by the dense growth. This silence is not empty. It feels deliberate, almost alive, as if the forest itself holds its breath, observing every step and every pause. Each movement becomes amplified in perception, heightening awareness and creating a tension that is both subtle and persistent. Despite the pervasive quiet, visitors often report hearing noises that defy explanation. Soft whispers drift between the trunks, carried on the wind, yet impossible to locate. Faint laughter echoes in the distance, sounding close enough to touch before fading into nothing. Branches snap unexpectedly, and small impacts on the forest floor suggest movement just out of sight. These sounds are fleeting and inconsistent, appearing without pattern, yet they leave a lasting impression, making the forest feel inhabited by unseen presences. Shadows and Silent Pines add to the Forster's eerie atmosphere. Tall pines cast long, dark forms that stretch across the ground, shifting as the light changes. At times, shapes appear to move independently, gliding or twisting between the trunks. These fleeting glimpses of forms, often humanoid in appearance, vanish when approached, leaving only the sense that the forest contains life beyond the ordinary. The combination of silence, shadows, and unexplained noises creates an environment where perception is constantly challenged. The terrain of the forest is uneven and layered with natural obstacles. Fallen logs, tangled roots, and dense underbrush obscure clear paths, forcing travelers to navigate carefully. Mist often rises in the early morning or late evening, curling around tree trunks and softening the edges of the forest, creating illusions of figures and movement. Every step feels deliberate, every pause significant, as if the forest responds subtly to human presence, guiding attention while concealing its secrets. Many visitors describe the feeling of being observed. Even when no one else is near, the forest conveys an awareness that is difficult to explain. A fleeting movement in the corner of vision, a subtle shift of shadows, or the sudden impression of a presence nearby, contributes to a heightened sense of tension. Silent Pines engages the senses fully, creating a sensation of being both a participant in the forest and a guest under its watchful gaze. Light and shadow play a critical role in the Forster's ambience. Sunlight filtering through the canopy illuminates patches of the forest floor, while leaving other areas in near darkness. This contrast exaggerates movements and shapes, making branches, leaves, and trunks appear to twist and shift with life of their own. The interplay creates a sense of depth and mystery, as though the forest is a living painting in constant motion, revealing new details with every glance. The forest soundscape is subtle yet complex. Beneath the silence, faint creaks of trees, the whisper of wind, and distant rustles combine into an atmosphere that feels rich and layered. Sounds often arrive from impossible directions, echoing and bouncing in ways that make it difficult to locate their source. Visitors report that even small movements are noticed by the environment, as if the forest senses intent and reacts with quiet acknowledgement. Time in silent pines feels altered. Hours can pass unnoticed as the forest absorbs attention, drawing focus to small, intricate details. The way sunlight glints on pine needles, the patterns of moss along tree bark, or the fleeting movements of shadows across the forest floor. Each element seems purposeful, as if the forest encourages mindfulness and observation, inviting those who enter to notice the subtle interplay of sound, light, and motion. Encounters with the unexplained are part of the forest's enduring allure. Visitors often leave with memories of soft whispers that cannot be traced, sudden noises that arise without origin, and shadows that linger longer than expected. These experiences are never violent or threatening, yet they evoke a deep sense of curiosity and respect. The forest becomes a space where the ordinary and mysterious coexist, where perception is stretched and imagination is heightened. Silent Pines is more than a forest. It is an immersive experience that engages every sense. Its quiet, its shifting shadows, its subtle noises, and its dense, shadowed paths create an environment that is unforgettable. Each visit becomes a personal journey, a dialogue between human presence and the subtle, pervasive life of the woods. Would you dare to step into Silent Pines, to walk its muted trails, to hear the whispers that rise and vanish, to sense the movements in the shadows, and to experience a forest that feels alive in ways you cannot fully explain, leaving an indelible mark on memory and imagination? Obsidian Hollow lies deep within the landscape, a forest where light struggles to penetrate the dense canopy. The soil is blackened and rich, absorbing every sound and lending the ground an almost unnatural stillness. Twisted roots rise from the earth like the fingers of ancient beings, winding across the trails and creating obstacles that demand careful navigation. Each step is deliberate, every movement measured, as if the forest itself monitors those who enter. Fog gathers in thick, shifting layers, drifting through the hollows and curling around the twisted trunks. Trails that were clear moments ago disappear into the gray, leaving visitors uncertain of direction. The mist seems to pulse with the forest's own rhythm, rising and falling in slow, deliberate waves. Shadows cling to the edges of vision, lingering for moments that stretch just beyond comprehension, only to vanish when attention is focused directly on them. Figures appear and recede at the periphery of sight, impossible to fully discern. They move with an unnatural fluidity, dissolving into the darkened undergrowth or blending with the fog. Some hikers feel the faint impression of being followed, a presence that does not speak or move in predictable ways, but is always just behind or beside them. It is a sensation that lingers long after leaving, a memory of attention without form. Cold drafts drift through the hollows, carrying the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. They brush across skin and neck in sudden gusts, accompanied by tingling sensations that rise unbidden along the spine. The air itself feels alive, charged with energy that is difficult to define, a quiet hum that resonates in the chest and raises awareness of every subtle sound and motion. Obsidian Hollow is a forest of contrasts. Moments of profound silence are interrupted by the sudden rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig underfoot, or the soft movement of something unseen. Light filters weakly through the canopy, forming muted patterns on the forest floor. These patches of illumination shift as the fog moves, creating fleeting glimpses of objects and forms that may or may not exist, encouraging the mind to search for meaning where there is none. Navigation becomes a challenge as trails curve unexpectedly, often leading back to points already passed. Fallen logs and exposed roots form natural barricades, while pockets of mist create the illusion of open paths that disappear when approached. The forest seems to respond to those who enter, subtly guiding, redirecting, or deterring, creating an experience that is at once disorienting and immersive. Sounds in Obsidian Hollow are deceptive. A distant bird call or the faint movement of branches can echo as if coming from multiple directions, making it difficult to locate their source. The faint whispers of wind and the shifting of fog combine to produce an auditory landscape that is simultaneously beautiful and unnerving. Every noise draws attention. sharpening the senses and heightening the awareness of the forest's presence. The flora is equally strange and compelling. Twisted trees with bark darkened by time rise above the forest floor, their branches intertwining to create dense canopies. Moss and lichen cling to trunks and roots, forming textures that appear alive and watchful. Fallen leaves and decaying would form soft, uneven carpets that cushion footsteps while adding to the forest's essence of age and permanence. Every element seems intentional, contributing to the atmosphere of mystery and subtle unease. Visitors frequently report fleeting glimpses of forms that vanish instantly. Shadows coalesce into shapes for a moment, hinting at figures or animals, only to dissolve into mist or darkness. These encounters are brief, yet their impact lingers, creating a tension that is not aggressive but insistent. The forest communicates without words, through presence, movement, and subtle cues that require attention and respect. Evening amplifies the forest's enigmatic qualities. The fading light deepens shadows, thickens the fog, and heightens the sensation of being immersed in a world separate from the ordinary. Cold drafts become more noticeable, and the tingling sensation intensifies, a reminder that the forest is aware and responsive. Trails that seem familiar during daylight may transform into a labyrinth of obscure paths, prompting careful consideration with every step. Attempts to capture the forest through photography or recording often fall short. Light, shadow, and fog interact in ways that resist reproduction, leaving images flat and sounds incomplete. The forest preserves its mysteries, offering experiences that are personal, ephemeral, and difficult to articulate. Those who spend time in Obsidian Hollow find themselves relying on intuition and observation, attuning to the subtle rhythms that guide the journey. The forest leaves a lasting impression. Visitors speak of a lingering awareness, the memory of shadows, fog, and unseen presence. There's a sense that the forest continues to watch even after leaving, embedding its quiet power into thought and perception. Every detail, from the twist of a root to the sudden chill in the air, gains significance in reflection, forming a mosaic of memory that is both vivid and elusive. Obsidian Hollow is more than a forest. It is a living, breathing environment charged with mystery and subtle energy, challenges perception, heightens awareness, and rewards those who move with respect and patience. Shadows, fog, and fleeting forms combine to create an experience that is immersive, haunting, and unforgettable. Even after exiting the dense trees and emerging into open spaces, the memory of Obsidian Hollow remains. The whispers of the forest linger in thought, the impressions of mist and shadow persist, and the sensation of having walked in a place alive with unseen attention continues to resonate. The forest endures as a realm of subtle mystery, an immersive space where observation, intuition, and presence converge to create an experience unlike any other. Nightfall wood stretches across the landscape like a dark, breathing entity, its towering trees forming a dense canopy that swallows the last light of day. The forest floor is a patchwork of fallen leaves, tangled roots, and soft moss that muffles footsteps yet seems to record each movement with eerie precision. Shadows deepen as the sun dips below the horizon, folding the woods into a realm where perception is tested and senses are heightened. After sunset, the forest comes alive in ways that are subtle yet unmistakable. Owls call from unseen perches, their wings slicing silently through the air. Small nocturnal creatures move in the underbrush, their eyes reflecting faint glimmers of light. Every natural sound mingles with the mysteriosa. Soft footsteps echo where none should exist. Faint whispers drift through the trees. Occasional distant cries punctuate the stillness. Trails in nightfall woods are not always predictable. Paths that appeared straightforward during daylight may curve unexpectedly or lead to sections of forest that were invisible moments before. Trees that seem familiar take on unfamiliar shapes as darkness deepens. Shadows stretch and twist independently, creating fleeting impressions of figures standing just beyond vision. The forest tests those who wander within, gently altering perception and challenging assumptions, while always maintaining an atmosphere that is captivating rather than threatening. The The mist that rises in patches adds another layer to the forest's enigmatic character. It drifts along the ground and winds between trunks, curling like liquid smoke. Occasionally, it parts to reveal open clearings or frozen pools reflecting dim moonlight, only to close again, obscuring sight and heightening the sense of being observed. Figures are sometimes glimpsed in the mist, motionless and distant, vanishing the instant they are approached. These fleeting glimpses leave a lingering impression, suggesting presence without revealing intent. Sounds carry unusually well through the woods at night. A branch snapping far off echoes with clarity, and a distant whisper seems to circle from tree to tree. Footsteps are often heard behind or beside a traveler, yet when turned toward, no one is there. Even the rustle of leaves in the wind seems purposeful, as if each motion is orchestrated by the forest itself. Visitors report that after leaving the woods, they continue to feel the echoes of its sounds in their mind, a subtle reminder of the forest's persistent awareness. Light behaves unpredictably in nightfall woods. Moonlight filters through the dense canopy, casting beams that illuminate patches of moss, roots, and fallen leaves with spectral clarity. Shadows bend unnaturally, creating shapes that suggest movement even in stillness. Occasional glimmers of reflected light catch the eye from the depths of the forest, drawing attention to empty spaces or fleeting figures. This interplay of illumination and shadow contributes to the sense that the forest is alive, attentive, and quietly interactive. The floor of the woods is both familiar and subtly unsettling. Moss blankets rocks and roots, cushioning steps yet creating patches of slippery terrain. Fallen logs, slick with dew or frost, form natural barriers and pathways, their surfaces catching light in ways that enhance the forest's otherworldly quality. Ferns and low shrubs sway as if stirred by invisible currents, brushing against legs and arms in a way that feels deliberate. Every element of nightfall woods contributes to the impression of sentience, as if the environment itself participates in the experience of those who move through it. Time seems to distort within the forest. Minutes stretch and compress. Familiar landmarks appear altered, sometimes vanishing entirely. Trails that were clear moments before can loop back, forcing travelers to retrace steps unknowingly. Visitors describe fragmented memories of their time within the woods, unsure of the exact sequence of events. This temporal disorientation adds to the sense that Nightfall Woods is a place where ordinary rules of perception are challenged and where awareness must remain keen to navigate successfully. Seasonal changes alter the forest's character, adding layers to its enigmatic presence. Spring brings moisture and new growth, with mist rising from damp earth and leaves glistening with dew. Summer nights are heavy with insects and the subtle hum of nocturnal life, yet shadows and whispers persist. Autumn transforms the forest with muted reds and golds, leaves creating a soft carpet that amplifies the crunch of footsteps. Winter brings frost, crisp air, and a heightened quiet, making every sound seem magnified and every shadow more pronounced. Each season reveals new aspects of the forest, while maintaining its underlying air of mystery. Visitors often feel that Nightfall Woods responds to their presence. Trails shift subtly, shadows move in ways that seem intentional, and mist curls around paths as if guiding or redirecting. Figures at the edges of perception appear and vanish, enhancing the sensation that the forest observes and interacts. Even after leaving, hikers describe a feeling of being watched, a lingering awareness that extends beyond the physical boundaries of the woods. This subtle interaction creates a sense of connection and curiosity, leaving an impression that endures long after departure. The forest is a place of contrast. It is inviting yet disorienting, serene yet filled with subtle tension, beautiful yet unsettling. Every step, every glance into the mist, and every sound contributes to an immersive narrative that blends natural beauty with a profound sense of awareness. Nightfall Woods rewards careful observation and respect, gently reminding those who enter that it is alive, perceptive, and full of subtle surprises. Even the smallest details hold significance. The sway of a branch, the reflection of moonlight on wet leaves, the rustle of small creatures, and the fleeting glimpse of a shadow all combine to create a cohesive, cinematic experience. The forest communicates indirectly through these phenomena, leaving impressions that linger and stories are carried in memory. Nightfall Woods remains both enchanting and haunting. The interplay of mist, shadow, sound, and movement creates an environment that captivates while maintaining an edge of tension. Visitors learn to move carefully, to notice subtle details, and to respect the presence that surrounds them. Every encounter, whether a shadowy figure, a shifting trail, or a whispered sound, contributes to a narrative that is immersive, memorable, and quietly profound. Those who venture through Nightfall Woods leave with a sense of awe and heightened awareness. The forest as persistent observation, shifting trails, and elusive figures embed themselves in memory, forming a story that continues long after departure. Nightfall Woods is a place that watches, responds, and lingers, offering a cinematic, immersive experience that is unforgettable for all who traverse its darkened paths. Moonshadow Thicket lies deep within a dense forest where the canopy allows only fragments of moonlight to reach the forest floor. Shadows stretch and twist between gnarled trunks, moving in ways that seem independent of the wind. The air is cool and thick, carrying the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves. Every step taken through the thicket feels deliberate, as if the forest itself is aware of the presence of those who enter. Visitors often notice glowing orbs drifting between the trees. They appear suddenly, small and ethereal, bobbing in the darkness, and illuminating the underbrush with a faint, otherworldly light. These orbs move with intention, circling or following travelers, vanishing when approached too closely, leaving only the memory of their presence. The effect is mesmerizing yet unnerving, a reminder that Moonshadow Thicket exists on a plane slightly removed from ordinary perception. Shadows in the thicket behave unusually. Branches sway as if alive, bending and twisting against the wind. Shapes seem to materialize at the edge of vision, brief, inexplicable to chase a brush of air, a tap on the shoulder, or a sensation of something passing close without contact. The forest seems to interact with the living, responding to movement and attention with subtle but persistent energy. Faint murmurs echo through the dense trees. These sounds are almost imperceptible, carried through the branches and mossy undergrowth. They rise and fall with the wind, sometimes forming patterns that resemble speech, yet remain unintelligible. The combination of whispering voices, shifting shadows, and glowing orbs creates an environment that is both enchanting and disquieting. Visitors cannot help but feel they are not alone, and the forest's presence is palpable. Moonlight filters through gaps in the canopy, casting fragmented patterns on the forest floor. These patterns shift with the movement of the trees, creating the impression of motion even when the air is still. Mist often gathers in low areas, diffusing the light and softening the outlines of surroundings. The interplay of shadow, light, and fog makes the thicket feel alive, as if it is breathing in sync with those who walk through it. The terrain of Moonshadow Thicket is uneven and layered with roots, rocks, and leaf litter. Trails curve unexpectedly, guiding travelers deeper into the forest. The paths appear to shift subtly, making familiar areas feel unfamiliar and heightening the sense of disorientation. Every step requires attention, encouraging observation of both the immediate surroundings and the subtler signs of movement that suggest unseen activity. Sound plays a vital role in the thicket's atmosphere. Footsteps seem amplified at times, echoing in directions that do not align with the natural layout. Leaves rustle without wind, and distant branches snap with no visible cause. This combination of sounds creates an immersive environment, blending natural phenomena with experiences that are difficult to explain. Moonshadow Thicket evokes both beauty and threat simultaneously. The glowing orbs and soft murmurs are captivating, yet the shifting shadows and sudden touches remind visitors to remain cautious. The forest demands respect, and those who move carelessly may feel the subtle pressure of its presence more keenly. Attention and awareness become essential, transforming each journey into a delicate negotiation with the environment. Even moments of stillness are charged with energy. Standing quietly, one can feel the pulse of the thicket, the subtle swaying of branches, the faint movement of orbs, and the shifting mist at ground level. Each element interacts with the others, creating a dynamic and responsive ecosystem that seems aware of those within it. The experience is immersive, drawing visitors into a heightened state of perception, where ordinary boundaries of space and movement feel altered. Moon Shadow Thicket leaves a lasting impression. Travelers often report lingering sensations of being observed, shapes glimpsed in the corner of the eye, and the memory of orbs that seem to follow them. Even after leaving the forest, the atmosphere persists in thought and memory, a reminder of the forest as subtle influence and enduring presence. The combination of visual phenomena, auditory cues, and sensory impressions creates an experience that is deeply immersive and unforgettable. The forest's energy is both patient and persistent. It does not strike suddenly or aggressively, yet maintains an awareness that is constant and unmistakable. Every movement, every glance, and every step is noted by the environment, creating a dialogue between visitor and thicket that is silent but palpable. Observing carefully, moving deliberately, and respecting the subtle signals of the forest allows for deeper engagement with its mysteries. Moon Shadow Thicket is a landscape of contrasts. Light and shadow, sound and silence, stillness and motion all converge to create an environment that is rich, layered, and enigmatic. The forest appears beautiful and threatening at once, captivating those who enter while instilling a sense of caution and reverence. Every aspect of the glowing orbs, the shifting shadows, the murmuring whispers, and the gentle chaser contributes to a cinematic, immersive experience that lingers long after departure. To traverse Moon Shadow Thicket is to enter a world where perception is tested, and ordinary rules of movement and observation are subtly altered. Every encounter, every shift of light or shadow, and every whispered sound contributes to a narrative that is both mysterious and engaging. The forest exists as a living, responsive space, blending natural beauty with phenomena that evoke wonder, curiosity, and a quiet, lingering tension. Moon Shadow Thicket endures as a place where the extraordinary blends with the natural world. Travelers leave with a memory of glowing lights, shifting shadows, and the sensation of being observed by something beyond ordinary understanding. It is a forest that rewards awareness, invites reflection, and remains alive in both memory and imagination, a testament to the enduring power of a place that is both beautiful and haunting. Fogvale Pine stretches deep into a remote wilderness, a forest where mist hangs thick between towering pines and damp undergrowth. The fog swirls around tree trunks, softening outlines and hiding the trails from view. Light filters through in faint, diffuse beams, turning familiar paths into shifting corridors of gray. Every step feels uncertain, as if the forest itself is reshaping around those who walk within it. The forest is quiet in a way that is almost unnatural. Footsteps are muffled by the thick carpet of needles and moss, and distant sounds are absorbed by the fog. Yet within this silence, faint whispers drift through the trees, soft and unintelligible, rising and fading without pattern. These voices carry an eerie weight, stirring curiosity and unease, making it impossible to ignore the sense that the forest is alive in ways beyond ordinary perception. Figures are glimpsed between trunks and behind misted outlines. They move with fluidity, appearing briefly before vanishing into the fog. Sometimes the forms seem human, yet their motions are unnatural, gliding rather than walking. Hikers describe moments of hesitation, a sudden awareness that they are not alone, followed by an unsettling emptiness when the figures disappear. These fleeting encounters leave a lasting impression, a sense of being watched, and a questioning of reality and perception. The forest floor itself contributes to the disorientation. Trails twist and shift unexpectedly, leading travelers to places they thought they had passed or turning paths into dead ends. Fallen logs, dense ferns, and hidden roots obscure vision and footing, amplifying the sense of mystery. Mist clings to low branches and thick underbrush, creating visual illusions that challenge the mind and make ordinary objects appear alive or threatening. Every step demands attention. Every pause invites observation. Fog-veiled pines is also a place of subtle motion. Leaves tremble even in still air. Shadows shift independently of light, and the fog moves in patterns that seem purposeful. Small sounds echo strangely, distant snaps of twigs or fall of a pine cone, carrying more weight than expected. The hiker often feels a presence close by, a brush of sensation, or a fleeting chill. Yet when they turn, nothing is there. The forest's energy is pervasive, surrounding each visitor and engaging senses that might otherwise be ignored. Light behaves differently here. Sunlight is scattered and muted by the mist, creating a monochromatic world where depth and distance are difficult to judge. Familiar landmarks are obscured or transformed, and the forest takes on a dreamlike quality. Shapes of trees, rocks, and fallen logs shift as the fog moves, producing patterns that suggest movement or form where none exists. Perception becomes a challenge, requiring careful observation and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. The soundscape is minimal but layered. Silence dominates, yet beneath it, whispers, distant rustles, and faint cracking sounds emerge sporadically. Hikers report that the closer they move toward perceived figures or sounds, the further they retreat or vanish entirely. It is a place where curiosity and caution coexist, where engagement with the environment is rewarded with fleeting insights, yet never full understanding. Time in fog-veiled pines is fluid. Hours can pass unnoticed as the fog shifts and shadows stretch across the forest floor. The repetition of muted sounds and drifting mist creates a sense of suspended reality, a place outside ordinary temporal perception. Visitors often emerge in the forest with a lingering impression that they have traversed not only a physical space, but a threshold between the familiar and the enigmatic, leaving a mark on memory and imagination alike. The forest atmosphere is immersive and personal. Each visitor experiences it differently, yet the common thread is a blend of wonder, unease, and heightened awareness. Glimpsed figures, the drifting whispers, and the shifting trails all contribute to a sensation that the forest exists on multiple levels simultaneously. Ordinary details of branches, moss, light that carry significance, and a perception of presence, whether real or imagined, is constant and unavoidable. Fog-veiled pines is more than a collection of trees and fog. It is a living environment, responsive and enigmatic, a forest that engages the senses, challenges perception, and evokes emotions that linger long after leaving its depths. The interplay of mist, light, shadow, and sound creates a space where reality is fluid, and the boundary between what is seen and unseen is blurred. Each step taken in the forest is a dialogue, a negotiation with the mysterious energy that inhabits the grove. This is a space where the laws of reality are tested and the unknown lurks, a place where the veil between worlds is thin and the secrets of the unknown wait to be uncovered. Would you dare to enter fog-veiled pines, to follow shifting trails, witness fleeting figures, listen to whispers that rise and vanish, and experience a forest where perception is tested and reality is uncertain, leaving you forever aware of the presence that moves unseen among the mist? Twilight Hollow lies tucked within the forest, a place where light and shadow mingle in constant tension. Sunlight struggles to reach the forest floor, filtering through the dense canopy in scattered, muted beams. Mist coils around gnarled trunks like fingers, wrapping the trees in a shifting embrace that obscures paths and transforms familiar terrain into something uncertain and unfamiliar. The air is thick and heavy, carrying the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and the faint metallic tang of something older, something preserved in the shadows. Every step on the soft, moss-covered ground releases a subtle sound, a crunch or squelch that seems louder than it should. The forest listens, or at least it feels as though it does, and each footfall echoes in response, a quiet dialogue between traveler and woodland. Shadows move with an almost deliberate intention. At the edge of vision, they gather and stretch, forming shapes that shift and flow like living smoke. They retreat when looked at directly, leaving only the feeling that something has observed and assessed. Hikers and wanderers report an unshakable sensation of being watched, a presence that is intangible but unmistakable, lingering at the periphery of perception. Voices rise in the underbrush, sometimes clear, other times fragmented. A name is whispered, a piece of conversation repeated, faint and almost carried on the wind. They are elusive and fleeting, yet impossible to ignore, The forest seems to communicate in this way, layering messages in sound and movement, guiding, warning, or perhaps testing those who venture too far. The terrain of Twilight Hollow is deceptive. Trails curve unexpectedly. Roots rise like natural barricades. And the mist shifts to conceal even familiar landmarks. What seems to be a straight path can wind back to the same clearing, and small deviations in movement can dramatically alter the course of journey. The forest demands attention and care, rewarding mindfulness and punishing distraction, a silent arbiter of experience. Ancient trees stretch high, their limbs intertwining to form vaulted corridors through the canopy. Moss and lichen coat the bark, glowing faintly when sunlight strikes at just the right angle. Fallen leaves blanket the forest floor, muffling sound and enhancing the sense of isolation. Each plant, each stone, each patch of soil seems purposeful, contributing to an environment that is alive with subtle energy. A sense of isolation pervades the atmosphere, as if the forest is a world unto itself. Mist flows like a living entity, sometimes thick enough to obscure vision entirely. It curls around trees and rocks, moving as if responding to motion and intention. Paths appear and vanish within the fog, guiding and deterring in equal measure. The effect is mesmerizing and disorienting, a delicate interplay between fear and fascination that draws explorers deeper into the heart of the hollow. Sounds are amplified and distorted within the hollow. The snap of a twig echoes unnaturally. Distant calls of animals resonate in unexpected directions, and the faintest brush of wind against leaves produces rhythms that are both melodic and eerie. Each noise sharpens awareness, creating a heightened state of perception where even small details carry weight and significance. Visitors often describe fleeting glimpses of forms among the shadows. Figures appear for a moment, defined enough to register but dissolving instantly when focused upon. They may be shapes of animals, human-like silhouettes, or something entirely unfamiliar. These brief encounters leave impressions that linger, a subtle tension that remains even after the forest has been left behind. Twilight Hollow's beauty is entwined with unease. Beams of sunlight illuminate mist in silvered patterns, turning the ordinary into something magical. Small streams glint faintly, reflecting shifting light, while moss and ferns create textures that are both lush and mysterious. The forest captivates as much as it unsettles, drawing the visitor into a dance of curiosity and caution, wonder and respect. As evening falls, the forest deepens into shadows. Mist thickens, light fades, and the underbrush becomes a tangle of shapes and movement. Voices from earlier grow softer and more indistinct, and the feeling of presence becomes pronounced. Trails vanish, paths twist, and every sense is heightened. It is a delicate equilibrium where the observer is aware of the forest's watchfulness, and the forest, in turn, seems to respond. Attempts to record or photograph the hollow rarely capture the full experience. Light, shadow, and mist interact in ways that resist replication, leaving recordings faint, images flat, or sounds incomplete. The hollow preserves its mysteries for those present, offering encounters that are personal, ephemeral, and unforgettable. Technology cannot replicate the subtle rhythms, the shifting fog, or the sensation of being observed by something unseen. Even after leaving, Twilight Hollow leaves a lasting impression. Shadows, mist, and voices linger in memory, influencing perception long after the trails have been traversed. Visitors carry with them the quiet tension, the sense of wonder, and the awareness that some aspects of the forest exist beyond immediate comprehension. Every rustle of leaves, every curve of root, and every fleeting figure gains significance in reflection, forming a tapestry of memory that is both vivid and intangible. Twilight Hollow is more than a forest. It is a living entity, a space where perception, presence, and subtle energies converge. It challenges, captivates, and guides with delicate authority, leaving those who enter with a sense of awe and respect. The Hollow endures as a place of beauty intertwined with dread, a realm where shadows, mist, and unseen voices create an immersive, cinematic experience that remains long after the forest itself has receded from view. Eldergloom Forest stretches across the Oregon landscape like a living relic, its trees ancient and towering, their trunks thick with moss and bark darkened by centuries of rain. The canopy is dense, filtering light into faint, dappled patterns that barely touch the forest floor. Every step through this forest carries a sense of weight, as if the land itself is aware of each movement. The forest holds an oppressive presence that can be felt even without seeing anything unusual. Branches sway without wind, creating soft whispers that seem intentional. Shadows gather densely between the trees, stretching unnaturally and bending light in ways that challenge perception. The air feels thick, almost tactile, carrying the scent of damp earth, rotting leaves, and the faint aroma of moss and lichens. Every inhale is a reminder that the forest is ancient, patient, and watching. Figures are sometimes glimpsed at the edge of vision. They appear briefly between trees, standing motionless, only to vanish the instant attention is given. These fleeting shapes leave a lingering impression, a sense that something unseen is observing or interacting with those who pass through. Trails themselves seem alive. Paths that appear clear moments before can twist unexpectedly or loop back, leaving hikers disoriented. Familiar landmarks may appear altered, adding to the subtle tension that permeates the forest. Sounds carry unusually far in Eldergloom Forest. A snapped twig or shifting branch echoes unnaturally, creating a sense that movement is occurring nearby even when no one is present. Soft murmurs drift through the fog, too faint to understand yet undeniably there. Footsteps crunch over leaves or dirt in areas where no one has walked, adding to the forest's mysterious and unsettling atmosphere. Even birds and small mammals behave differently, silent or skittish, as if acknowledging the unseen presence that inhabits these woods. The mist that rises and falls within Eldergloom Forest adds dynamic, almost sentient quality. It curls around tree trunks, moves along the forest floor, and forms temporary walls and clearings that appear and vanish without warning. Light refracts through the fog, creating spectral glows that highlight moss, rocks, and decaying logs. Shadows bend and stretch independently of their sources, forming shapes that suggest motion or figures where none exist. The interplay of fog, shadow, and light heightened awareness and compels careful observation. Flora in Eldergloom Forest contributes to its mysterious nature. Moss carpets rocks and roots in thick layers, softening footsteps while muffling sounds. Ferns sway delicately, brushing against limbs in ways that feel deliberate, almost guiding or testing visitors. Fallen trees and logs, slick with moisture or covered in frost, provide natural obstacles and pathways, catching light and casting shadows that enhance the forest's otherworldly character. Each element of the environment seems attentive, reinforcing the impression that the forest responds to intruders. Time behaves differently in Eldergloom Forest. Minutes stretch and compress, leaving travelers unsure of duration. Trails that seem straightforward moments before may twist or disappear entirely. Hikers report a sense of fragmented memory, uncertain of the sequence of events or the exact details of what they witnessed. The forest seems to record experiences, responding in small, disorienting ways that leave visitors aware that every step is noticed. Seasonal changes reveal new layers of the forest's character. Spring brings mist rising from wet soil, misting with the scent of fresh growth and decay. Summer adds a soft hum of nocturnal insects and the occasional call of birds, though shadows remain dense and the presence of the unseen persists. Autumn coats the ground in leaves, muted reds and golds that crunch underfoot, emphasizing both beauty and subtle tension. Winter blankets the forest in frost, amplifying silence and heightening the intensity of every sound or movement. Each season maintains a forest's enigmatic qualities while offering unique sensory experiences. Light in Eldergloom Forest is unpredictable. Shafts of sunlight penetrate the canopy in faint beams, illuminating moss roots and decaying foliage with ethereal brilliance. Shadows bend and twist, creating fleeting impressions of movement. Occasional glimpses of reflected light catch the eye from deep within the mist, suggesting figures or shapes that vanish when investigated. This dynamic interplay between illumination, shadow, and fog reinforces the sense that the forest is alive, aware, and subtly interactive. Visitors often feel guided by the forest. Trails seem to redirect or twist with intent. Shadows shift in ways that suggest observation. Figures appear briefly before vanishing. Hikers report feeling touches, a sense of presence that moves with them through the trees. Even after leaving Eldergloom Forest, that the woods continue to watch a quiet awareness that endures. The forest is both beautiful and unsettling. Its ancient trees, dense fog, shifting trails, and fleeting figures create an environment that captivates while maintaining tension. Every step, glance, and sound contributes to an immersive experience that blends natural beauty with an unexplainable awareness. Eldergloom Forest rewards mindfulness and observation, while gently reminding visitors that it holds secrets beyond ordinary perception. Even the smallest details are significant. The sway of a branch, the shimmer of dew on moss, the soft murmur of distant wind, and the ephemeral impression of a figure all contribute to a narrative that feels alive and intentional. Observers find themselves attuned to subtle changes, gaining a profound awareness of the forest's presence and character. Eldergloom Forest remains a place of paradox. It is inviting yet disorienting, serene yet filled with subtle tension, and beautiful yet haunting. Those who venture within its depths leave with impressions, stories, and memories that linger, a reminder that the forest is not merely a landscape, but a living entity that watches, reacts, and endures. Every visitor carries a piece of Eldergloom with them after leaving. The oppressive beauty, shifting shadows, creeping fog, and faint whispers leave a lasting impression. The forest is alive, responsive, and profoundly atmospheric, offering an immersive, cinematic experience that engages the senses and leaves a lingering sense of wonder and unease. Each step, each sound, and each glimpse into fog contributes to a story that continues long after the forest is left behind, reminding all who enter that Oregona-esque wilderness holds mysteries that defy understanding. These 25 haunted shadow forests are more than destinations. They are portals to a world where the living and the unseen coexist. Curiosity meets caution, beauty intertwines with fear, and every step reveals the unknown. If you ever venture into these forests, remember that the trees remember, the shadows watch, and the whispers follow. Walk carefully, sense keenly, and respect the stories embedded in every branch, root, and leaf. The forests of Oregon have waited centuries for those brave enough to enter and wise enough to leave change forever. May your steps be cautious, your mind open, and your senses alert, for the shadow forests are alive, and they are always watching.